Are we doing 598 first?
First old business.
I'm supposed to enter something there. Okay.
No, we still need a username.
I don't remember.
I do know that. I have to look for it. Yeah.
Thank you. No problem.
We're just gonna switch.
And that's going to go first, above 300. Okay.
It's gonna go
Okay. Cool.
598, then that,
That's fine.
or whatever.
So we're gonna do 5.
Whenever you're ready.
And then we could do 32 Sherman second, because they're here, and then we'll go through the rest of
CBA.
it.
Okay.
Yeah. So you are, no, you don't have to read any of this. I do all this section. You don't have to worry about any of that. When I say we're going to,
Call the case numbers.
yeah, so when I say I'm going to say basically we're going to go to old business, but we are going to be calling the cases out of order. And then you can just go right in to say we're going to call 8C first. And you just read, yep, case number, that is Vertebello,
Okay.
like the mushroom.
I know.
Oh, okay, perfect. And then, yeah, just read this.
Okay.
Iris, let me know when you're ready. Okay, perfect. All right, we're going to call this regular meeting of the Jersey City Historic Preservation Commission to order. It is 6:33 p.m. Please be advised that in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the notice of the time, date, and place of this regularly scheduled meeting of the Jersey City Historic Preservation Commission has been sent to the Bergen Record and Alice Basilito on Friday, December 12th. Same notice has been provided to the city clerk for posting on the bulletin board outside of the clerk's office in City Hall and on the Jersey City website. I have proof of this notice in evidence that we can mark as B1. Thank you. Okay, we'll do a roll call of commissioners. Commissioner Gucciardo?
Here.
Commissioner Sankamp?
Here.
Commissioner Gunther?
Here.
Commissioner Sakong?
Here.
Commissioner Blazak?
Here.
Commissioner Gordon?
Present.
Commissioner Edgecombe is absent. Commissioner Kay?
Here.
Commissioner Callback?
Here.
And Chair Cronin is absent, so that's just Vice Chair Garriga.
Here.
Okay. Acting Chair Garriga. There are 9 members of the commission in attendance. 5 affirmative votes are needed for a certificate of appropriateness. We do not have any minutes on tonight's agenda to approve. For correspondence, all application materials are linked on tonight's agenda, and they're all available for public review through those links. Staff has no announcements at this time.
One announcement.
Oh, we do have one announcement.
So we have one announcement. Item 11A, 20 Sherman Place, B-25-0823 has carried to the March 2026 HBC meeting.
Great. So moving on after announcements is open public comment. If there are any members of the public in attendance tonight who would like to speak regarding matters of historic preservation that are not on tonight's agenda, you can approach the public comment mic. Staff sees none and recommends a motion to open and close public comment.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that leads us to old business. I know we will be calling the cases out of order this evening. So Acting Chair Garriga, if you'd like to call the first case in old business.
We're going to call case number H25-0009, applicant Robert Vertebello, applicant on behalf of JCH Development, LLC, 598 Jersey Ave. That's block and lot 11205-43 in the Harsimus Cove Historic District for the certificate of appropriateness for the proposed subdivision of the lot and adaptive reuse of the former North Baptist Church an altered key contributing resource in the Harsimus Cove Historic District, dedicated 1887, partially destroyed by the fire in 1978, and partially rehabilitated for worship in 1983. The proposed residential project includes, but is not limited to, the integration of the character-defining features of the building with new construction to convert the site into a 14-unit residential building, incorporating the extant west facade, tower, and partial south facade. Recommendation to the Jersey City Zoning Board of Adjustment carried from the November 17th, 2025 regular HPC meeting.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. I am obviously not Robert Verdevello. My name is Veronica Schmiel. I'm also from the law firm Connell Foley on behalf of the applicant JCH Development this evening. I'll keep my remarks very brief, as obviously the star of the show is Mr. Manny Pereiras, our architect, and the structure itself. We're here for an application for certificate of appropriateness for 598 Jersey Avenue. We submitted our application a little while ago. I know Mr. Pereiras has been working very closely with Mr. Reedon. We are in receipt of his staff memo dated November 14th, 2025, with the revision date of December 12th, 2025. As some of you may recall, I was here at the November meeting, requested an adjournment, so we could sort of get things in final order to present to you tonight. In addition to this application, we've also simultaneously applied for site plan approval with the zoning board as well as a subdivision to subdivide the property into 2 lots to keep the existing chapel and keep the existing church, with obviously the proposed adaptive reuse that we're going to be discussing tonight. Those are really my comments, so I will turn it over to our architect to present the project to you all this evening.
Good evening. Will do.
Do you swear that the testimony you will provide this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Manny
Say your full name.
Manny Pereiras, Pereiras, with Pereiras Architects Ubiquitous, located at 1116 Summit Avenue in neighboring Union City, here in New Jersey, 07087.
Staff notes that Mr. Pereiras has previously been qualified as an expert in the field of architecture in front of this board before. And your license is current to reflect that?
It is current.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to present. It has been a long journey that started actually way back right after the Civil War. The North Baptist congregation purchased these properties. They put together a few properties in the 1860s, right after the Civil War. We have some records that this building was constructed in the 1880s. We have a small snippet in a paper where there was a mention of the congregation and the church in 1881, and they had their proper opening ceremony in 1887. So we're dealing with a great amount of history that's impactful, and we'll learn more about it as we move forward. Right now, and just for purposes of the record, everything that you see before you, everything that I'm presenting on the board is the same submittal package that was submitted on the portal, and I'm just using it to illustrate here. There are 2 easels to my left and my right. The easel to my left is a material board of the finishes that we have proposed for the church that was previously submitted to the board through photographs. And then on the right is an old postcard, which was submitted. It was actually on page Z46 of the submittal package located in this spot, just blown up so that we have a really good understanding of what we're dealing with and the beauty of the church that we're working with. As we said before, we are on the corner of Jersey Ave and 4th. The property is consisting of actually 2 buildings. You see from the photograph, we have the proper building and a smaller chapel next to it. One of the aspects of our application is the subdivision of these two lots. We're looking to subdivide this into 46 wide for the old chapel and 54, that's along Jersey Avenue. And the depth of both of these properties remains at 83.83 feet. So we're looking to do a subdivision. The congregation that's there, which is the North Baptist Spanish congregation, they're looking to hold on to the chapel portion of this building and take the proceeds of this sale. I lost you. Okay. Hopefully that pops back up. Great. They're looking to take the proceeds of this sale, which is pending approvals, to finish their church. Our application here today is strictly after the subdivision, the adaptive reuse of the building on the corner, the larger church. As you can see from the photographs, there were several plagues that happened to this church, or problems. One was in the late 30s, where the large windows that you see in the front of the church were blown out, and they were then constructed around 1938 and infilled with brick and smaller windows. We felt that that was not part of the true historic fabric of the church, and what we're looking to do is regain the original beauty and go back to the larger windows, and you'll see that in our proposal later on. And actually, before I was even born in 1978, this church suffered a catastrophic fire. And that fire took out, and you could tell from here, from this photograph, the entire sanctuary. So the only thing that is maintaining is that facade on Jersey Avenue. And the choir loft, which is in horrible, dilapidated condition. It's practically ready to collapse. But you could see that there's a large void in the back of the church. And let me walk you now through the existing conditions of the facade and what we are dealing with more detail. We split up the drawings in several ways. First and foremost, we wanted to document what was there. And this is sheet Z04. There's both photographic evidence and an architectural drawing in some detail of what we have there in the existing facade. We've labeled every piece of the facade, and there is some serious dilapidation in certain areas. For example, the darker shaded areas of brick, the one across the middle and over the window, that was an old chimney flue that has taken water, and that part is in really dangerous physical condition. We're looking to remove bricks in those areas to be replaced, and everywhere where it is possible to maintain and keep the existing brick, we are looking to do so, clean it, and keep it in its beauty. There is also a great amount of beautiful architectural detail that is in wonderful condition, and we're looking to salvage and restore all of these elements of the existing church in our proposed adaptive reuse project. There are very few pieces of windows left on this church. However, we were able to uncover a few pieces of historic evidence. The primary source of evidence that we have is this window in our tower. After we removed the plywood coverings on that window, we were able to see that there was a very dilapidated, problem-ridden frame, but it was enough that between that and the photographic evidence, we were able to obtain a lot of information. And one of our proposals is that we're looking to recreate these frames in their exact condition to match the dimensions of the original windows that we had on this church. So we were able to remove that, and with the help of Mr. Reedon and and different staff members, we were able to document that and take down all the profiles and really understand what was happening in these windows for future fabrication. The facade along 4th Street is in worse condition, actually. The darker areas that you see here are completely dilapidated. The area here that you see that is a shingle roof, that was a temporary fix. That was a fix that was supposed to last a year or two, and that happened many, many years ago, and it's ready to collapse. The facade itself is in desperate need of repair, and we're looking to salvage it in every way. So one of the things that we're doing is we're creating a steel frame in front of the facade immediately in order to protect it, to make sure that no further dilapidation occurs and that this is sound during construction. And now we're turning to our demolition sheets, where we're describing in detail each of the pieces and what we're doing with it, including the demolition of that entire center window, the infill, so be replaced with new windows. We're removing the fence around the building in order to restore it. And looking at the 4th Ave entrance, there is a significant amount of construction that we're looking to do. And what we're proposing is that from the area of the buttress to the rear wall of this property, we are documenting that wall and we are taking that down carefully for reconstruction later so that we have access to the site during construction. And with our proposal, what we have done is we have taken the evidence of what was existing there, and what we're proposing is to take the same envelope of what was originally there and build within that same envelope. So what we're looking to do is on the cross nave on 4th Street, we're reconstructing, matching the same height of what was there in a more contemporary, clean manner, so that the building maintains the same volume and same fit into the neighborhood of what was part of that historic fabric years ago. From the front facade, we're looking to see, as you see, to restore the brick, to match it as much as we can. We have selected bricks that are very close in color, extremely close in color. And we also have the added advantage that we have some portions of the building where we're able to take brick from those portions and reuse them on the front facade as well. And we're looking to do so. The windows are trying to maintain the historic character of the original windows that you could see there, taking from the evidence from the photographs and what we were able to find online, and really creating a true historic restoration of that front facade, and then have elements where you see them here in the distance, step back of that cross nave along the front facade. And then the cross facade on Jersey Ave, as you can see, we took and borrowed from the imagery and the shape of the existing or the previously existing building to propose our new building. The edge of our building is very much in line with the adjacent townhouses that are there to keep the character and the height of the neighborhood. And then as it steps back, it goes higher to the highest peak of the gable and the cross gable. We are looking to replace the glass with a clear glass that is a leaded glass in diamond-shaped pattern to infill all the windows to bring light into the spaces. And what we're proposing to do is to create apartments within the building. The existing conditions that are there now, in the lower level, there is an existing sanctuary that is going to be demolished, a small basement along the front, along Jersey Ave. And what we're proposing is, we're proposing a basement. The basement is for storage, bicycle storage, things of that nature. and our meter rooms along the front along Jersey Avenue. Our second story creates a lobby and a secondary lobby. The reason we have two lobbies is because we wanted to maintain the facades of the building as closely as possible. However, there are existing steps along Jersey Avenue. Even though it is the prominent and proper entrance of the building on the main avenue, we did not want to cut the facade or modify it in any way. We thought that this was an important aspect of the historic nature of the facade, and therefore we're maintaining that. So in order to provide ADA access to our building, we're utilizing the topography of the site and able to provide a ramp by having a secondary entrance off of Jersey Ave. So the building has two entry points, one ADA compliant off of Jersey Ave and one larger main lobby along Jersey Ave. That main lobby has package room, electric room, and access to the trash room, as well as access to two apartments on the lower level. The apartments are accessed from the lobby. We have, I'm not sure if the historic board is interested in the units themselves. We have a apartment, let me go by numbers to make this nice and easy and clear. We have apartment number 1, where we're utilizing a pre-existing door off of 4th Street. That door has its own private access to the apartment. It is a 756 square foot, 1-bedroom apartment that is fully ADA compliant. The bedroom size is 410 by 11.6 and has its own walk-in closet and bathroom. Apartment number 2 is 1,017 square feet. It is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment. The access is from the lobby. The apartment is utilizing and really taking the beauty of the existing facade. There are windows that are slightly awkwardly placed, but beautiful in their own right. And I think that's going to be more clearly established in the upper floors. Apartment number 3 is actually duplexed with the floor above in order to bring light into the space. And that is a total of 1,126 square feet. You have your living space on the ground floor and your secondary spaces are on the second floor. And apartment number 4 is also duplexed for a total of 981 square feet with the same concept that the living space is on the first floor and the apartments are on the second floor. Moving down to the second floor, we go back to apartments number 3 and 4, and we see the second story of these, where we now have clear story over the chapel next door, so we're able to bring light into these apartments. And we have 2 bedrooms on the apartment number 3, and 1 bedroom on apartment number 4, duplex with what's below. Apartment number 5 is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath of 1,062 square feet. Apartment number 6 is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath of 1,095 square feet. Apartment number 7 is 897 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And here you can see that some of the apartments are taking advantage of those windows along the front, that they're open into the living area. All circulation of this building is through a center core. That center core has 2 stairs for emergency egress and an elevator in the middle. That elevator provides ADA access throughout the building. And then moving on to the proposed 3rd floor, we have apartment number 8, which is a 1,095 square foot, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Apartment number 9 is a 1,062 square foot, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Apartment number 10 is a 990 square foot, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Apartment number 11 is a 881 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And then we move towards the 4th floor, where we have, again, a few duplex apartments. Apartment number 12 is duplexed. On the 4th floor, we have 1,092 square feet in total area. With both floors, we have 1,988 square feet. On this floor, we have nice open floor plan living dining kitchen area. We have 2 bedrooms, including the master bedroom. And the upper bedroom has a family room and 2 more bedrooms, one including a suite. Apartment number 13 is again duplex with the 5th floor. The living area is along the front where we're able to use the rose window there. And we have 2 bedrooms on this floor, and then it gets duplexed above where we're able to put 2 additional bedrooms, one of them being beautifully situated in the bell tower, which I think will be an amazing space. And then finally, apartment number 14, which is a 4-bedroom, 4-bath apartment, which is again duplex with above. We have 2 bedrooms on the 4th floor, and on the 5th floor, we have an additional 2 bedrooms, both of them being master suites. On sheet Z30, we see the massing of the building, which is really the existing footprint. We're not looking to grow that footprint in any way, and we see that in the context of the neighborhood. And we see the facades, the existing condition and the proposed condition along Jersey Ave. And on 4th Street, we see again the existing and proposed conditions showing the envelope of the building as we propose it. We have interior sections of the building to understand the existing and proposed conditions. These are the proposed conditions with cuts throughout the building that I could get into more detail if needed. Here we have building sections that start showing the relationship of the windows to the facade. Some site views to understand how the building fits into the neighborhood. This is our structural diagram showing how the building will be temporarily held in place during construction. And I'd like to take you now for some 3-dimensional modeling so that we could really understand how this building is situated and how it fits into the neighborhood. Here we could really see the massing of the building and how it fits and what our intervention is to the building. This is looking towards the corner away from so that we can understand the back and how the building faces the townhouse and the existing chapel. This is facing 4th, the north side of 4th, and on Jersey Avenue. And these are some renderings of what we propose to the building to look like. In concept, there are details that are missing that we are working on, but in concept, we're working to match the brick as closely as possible, both in the proposed addition and the existing church. We're looking to create some nice architectural detailing, really defining the difference between what is historic and what is proposed. We have this trim detail that is a slightly brighter color so that shows and defines what was part of the historic character and what is proposed. Our new windows are delineated as very rectilinear as opposed to the pointed Gothic windows of the historic fabric of the church to make the contrast. Yet we're using the plated glass look so that it matches and ties everything in together. And with the facade, our intentions are 100% to restore it as much as we can to the original as possible. And then as a salute to it, take some of those elements into the proposed facade, but not disguise this, not pretend that this is a historic facade. This is a contemporary facade, clean lines, clean edges, clean windows, but with a nod towards the historic and our sensibility of materials and the way it's being presented. Here we see a flat version of the facade and understanding the volume of what the building is. This is a flat elevation of the facade on Jersey Avenue. And then finally, a corner image taken from eye level, but in very similar perspective to the historic photograph, or at least from the location of the historic photograph, at a lower perspective at eye level, so that we could really understand the massing of the building. And again, detail is missing. It's a crude image to understand the massing of the building, but I think that this presents the intention of what we're looking to do today. And I turn it over to you. I thank you for the opportunity to present. I thank Mr. Reedon for all his guidance throughout this entire process, and I am open for your questions.
Before the commissioners start asking questions, maybe you might just want to run through your material sample board really quickly.
Thank you so much. That's such an important thing. So we went through a lot of pain to find what the appropriate roofing material would be for this building. And while it might not have been the historically used material, we thought that slate would be appropriate. It is used in similar buildings of this era. And so what we're proposing to do is a slate top. That sample is slightly deceiving. The sample, this portion is the exposed part. This is one entire rooftop. And that is a faux slate roof that we're proposing for the entire roof, except for the tower portion. The tower portion, the original spire, was obviously a lot taller. It would be inappropriate to build that today. So we wanted it to almost disappear from the streetscape. So we're doing a very low pitched roof that you don't actually see the roof. It doesn't create more of an obstruction to the neighborhood. So in order to create that low pitched roof, we couldn't use the slate tile. So we're using the roof that's below that. That's a standing seam metal roof, which is not really visible in general from the street. The bricks, we have 2 bricks. If you look at the building, there are 2 different colored bricks. There's a lot of beautiful brick elements in white as an accent. We matched the white as closely as we could. It's like a bone white. And the grout for that is matching almost identical. It's a lime-based grout that is appropriate for its time. The red brick, which I would call like a salmon colored brick, we found an extremely close match. We were able to do some control clean tests of the brick so that we're matching the clean brick and not the brick that's there today. That matches pretty closely to the brick. It also matches pretty closely in the defining edges of it. And the salmon grout, which again is a lime-based grout, it's very close in color to it. The windows, and pardon for the small sample, this sample, that is the color that we're proposing for the window frames. We thought that was appropriate. That was from a Benjamin Moore historic palette, which was probably extremely close to the original color of what was done with the church. And that's what we're proposing for not only the historic windows, but also for the proposed windows in the new design.
Sorry,
Stephen, turn
material
on your
on the
mic, please.
windows, what is that representing?
So that's representing only the color. The window manufacturer is going to be making an aluminum extruded window so that we can match the frame and the style that was there historically.
Okay.
And what material is the white this white banding thing that you're using to divide between the historic and the new facade? What material is that?
So there's a couple of materials to be clear. This there's combinations of stone, white brick, and that white banding material will be like an Alucobond type of material. It'll be aluminum compressed metal.
I have a question about the bricks. You said that you were trying to match the historic brickwork as closely as possible. Is there a stock size that does match in terms of the exact dimensions?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about, you need to do custom.
No.
Because I know you're doing a lot of brickwork, so it might be cost effective to do that if you needed. Okay. And my other question is about the area where it's labeled for condensers. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Happily. So, go up to the roof. So we have, in this area, we have, and actually, let me go back and forth between the model and that area. That is somewhat of a sunken courtyard. You have the roof that is at a pitch along this area right here, what we label as faux slate tiles. And then you have the wall of the apartment that's set back at the cross gable. And then you have this bit of a sunken courtyard. So we thought that was the perfect opportunity to hide our condensers. So going back to the three-dimensional model, those condensers are in this sunken courtyard under the parapet, so they won't be visible from the street.
Okay, so that, like horizontal, is there brickwork above that? Or are they, I guess I'm trying to visualize where they are in this rendering.
Yeah, so they are right behind, they're here,
And that's a brick parapet?
and that's a brick parapet.
Okay, thanks.
Oops, lost you.
Oh. Drawing on the screen is too much for the tech.
Anyone else?
I think I understood. I wanted to clarify. Are you saying that the roof lines depicted in your plan are the same roof lines that existed on the original building? Is the volume the same?
The volume is the same.
And the roof lines, the pitches are the same?
The roof, yes, and there is one point where I do want to clarify because it's a little deceptive. This little corner here, which is this portion, that is not the existing roof line. That is the only portion of our building that is beyond what the envelope of the building was.
That's where your condensers are, same location?
So the condensers are behind that.
Behind that?
And the north facade, which I don't know that we talked about in detail, that's the north facade.
Sorry.
I noticed that did have a different pitch and was treated differently than the sort of tucked away terraces on the south.
Yes.
And this is a historic pitch?
Actually, thank you for pointing that out.
I think that's what I was
Yeah,
getting to.
that's-
Thank you.
Yeah, it just feels atypical because
Yeah.
usually they're
The historic pitch would have been thorough
Same
from
as
one end, same as the front.
The south,
This
right.
is the back. I misspoke. You're correct. This is wider. In the back of the building on the north end, it is a wider pitch. The envelope does grow a little bit larger.
Yeah.
Not the street facing, but the north end.
And that is going to be visible from. I know these renderings are all from, which is.
It will be visible from
Yeah.
the street. Yes.
It's
absolutely.
a little. I think one of the things I would ask for is that the renderings are done from the perspective of a pedestrian on the sidewalk.
We could do that.
These views are helpful, but I think ultimately what we're most concerned about is the view from the street.
That makes sense. It would be this perspective, just probably about 15 feet lower.
And so the brick that you're showing on the material sample board, is that both the brick that you're going to use for replacing bricks that need to be replaced on the historic facade and any new bricks all around the building?
That's correct.
Okay.
Just a question about the window tracery that you discussed you guys were going to replace. I was looking at Z37. So is the intent to try and clad the aluminum frame with a wooden or, for a better word, stone replacement on the exterior to make it look as though it's part of that original tracery style? 'Cause you said you were going to replace it as per the window that you found?
Correct. So we're taking the profiles of the existing window, we're extruding new windows that can match that profile exactly, and then it gets painted. And then the and then the infill will be the leaded glass.
Okay, so you're going to get an aluminum extrusion in the shape of that original tracery?
Correct.
Right.
And the original tracery was made of,
It was wood.
was wood.
Which collapsed.
Right.
And part of it's because the scale and it was unsustainable, the scale of the original. And that's why there was a secondary historic infill in the late 30s.
You could verify that large rose window was wood? That's a very large window to be wood.
I don't.
Was it, Dan?
Yes, I can
Yeah.
verify that.
Okay.
So the big question I have is on the south facade. Please tell us how the decision was made not to recreate from photographic evidence what the south facade would have originally looked like. And why are we doing a modern interpretation on that facade?
I'll share with you my design aesthetic and why we came to this conclusion. This is an adaptive reuse. The use of the building is no longer a church. What we're proposing is a new concept, a new use within the existing structure. And as such, we're marrying the two uses of what it was there historically and what we're proposing. And I didn't want to imitate. I feel as an architect, and I know we all have different philosophies, sometimes it's appropriate to imitate. I think in this situation, we had the ability to preserve, and we preserved a historic facade. And our intervention, what we're proposing as new, take the importance and the characters that are necessary, but not hide this with imitation, but create a new design aesthetic. And that's the only reason behind it.
So when the word imitate is used, it's usually used for new construction of, let's say, there's a row house missing and you want to build a new row house. You don't have evidence of the old row house. You're going to do a modern infill. Then I would understand not imitating trying to pretend that you're historic in that case. But in this case, we know what was there. We know what the existing building looked like. So I wouldn't consider this an imitation, but a restoration and a rebuild.
I understand that, and I would agree with you 100% if we were rebuilding a church. Since we're not rebuilding a church and we have a new adaptive use, now that I think causes the difference where I feel that it is appropriate to do this. And I know this is a very personal choice, and I understand that you might have a different opinion, but I think it's a valid choice considering it's a new use.
I would agree with you there too as well. I don't think it would be appropriate to rebuild based on the historic evidence here, just because of the history of the fire, and this is going to be a residential structure. I've been walking by this building for 15 years now, and I don't think I ever imagined someone completely rebuilding that south-facing facade. I always thought something a little more modern and contemporary would go in there, since I always assumed that this would no longer be a church building. I think there are different ways that this can be done in a modern and contemporary manner. I think there might be some comments and work to do on this proposed, but I don't think that looking at that postcard and copying exactly what was there would be the right approach here.
Yeah, I'm not sure why I got your opinion about it, but, we, on a regular basis, have, people who are working on their homes restore missing portions of a building. And
It might be different if it was covered up, if there was a fire and, there was a substitute material put on there in the 70s or 80s and it was still under there, that might be different. But I also think of the different, we've done church conversions.
Exactly.
Nothing quite like this though, where they're creating so much of a new building. So this is a unique, I think, for us situation as well.
I think personally, the key point here is the fact that this is adaptive reuse.
Right.
And I think because unlike applications where we see an existing church and we're trying to see how we can use existing fabric towards this new use, I think the reconstruction of fabric that no longer exists towards a purpose that it wasn't built for. I think for me, that's the part of the argument that I agree with, that it shouldn't necessarily be a reconstruction. The discomfort I have, though, is with the design of that south facade.
For sure.
I would, and without trying to represent the full totality of sort of my reservations about it, I'll just point out a couple things. The large expanse of glass, the combination of, I think, Vision Lights and spandrel glass that constitute that kind of central window design. To me, this reads neither as, let's say, masonry, punch masonry opening, nor, let's say, curtain wall, right? Like you have these slivers of brick that float between the glass bays, the bricks that don't actually conclude in anything, and that also, I think, sit kind of uncomfortably on this stepped Alucoband, I guess, trace, let's say, coping. I think there's some work to do with the proportions and the let's say the relationship between solid and void on that main window design, that it should kind of take a position. It should either read as an opening within a masonry wall, or it should read as a curtain wall. But I think right now it reads as neither. And I think this kind of I guess it's almost like a C channel, I suppose, tracing let's say the cross apse. Unlike and again, without advocating for this to be an imitation, I think the fact that that's kind of embedded on either side of two planes of brick that are coplanar to each other makes it read as a kind of applied, let's say, ornament, rather than a real break in massing in plane, which the roofline purports it to do. But in plane, I think it's quite flat. And then the way the whole thing sits on that sort of one-story wall, I sense a discrepancy between the elevations and the three-dimensional renderings. In the renderings, there looks to be this kind of heavy brick band that's quite deep that runs across. And here it's interrupted by these pilasters. The height of that band looks much shallower than in the 3D. And I think the fact that it ends on this kind of cantilevered over the secondary opening, the ADA entrance, rather than kind of resolving, again, like the opening doesn't read as like a modern void under a cantilever, nor as an opening in a wall. It just looks like a sort of a, I don't know, contingent condition. It reads as an afterthought. So I think there's some work to do here about the relationship between brick, glass, breaks in plane, what's meant to read as like heavy masonry, what's meant to read as light filigree, and voids, that I would like to see another attempt at, personally.
And then there's leaded glass in there, I mean, to top that off. So I'm confused by this facade. And I'm also concerned because the Jersey Avenue facade was spoken about as the primary facade. But when you look at the renderings and you look at this corner, there are two primary facades here, not just one. And the secondary facade, if we'll call it that, is no less ornate in the original, no less important in the original. So I'm still having concerns. I understood the argument from fellow commissioners, but I don't see what's gained by this particular treatment. I think there needs to be a much more successful solution for this to work.
Sorry, just one other comment on the views that you had, 3D views looking sort of down, not quite aerial. The shadow under that white coping line seemed to get deeper as it progressed, I guess, further east. Was that is there a, yeah, maybe you could zoom into,
Yeah,
the
it
image.
does.
Yeah. So does the coping actually get deeper?
No, that's a modeling issue.
Okay, got it. And then can you speak to the height of that band being so different from what's shown in the elevations?
No, it should be the elevation. That's a modeling issue.
Okay.
I also think there needs to be I don't know if that's the most successful way to marry the two pieces of the building together. And I think I'd like to see something that maybe it's some sort of cast stone or, something that's taking a cue from the existing building. And maybe also, the other question that I have is, should the exact same brick be used at both buildings, or should it, or not both buildings, both parts of the building? I almost wonder if there should be a differentiation, and that could be another way to kind of.
We can.
Yeah, I
mean,
think
these
this
are
is
all
something to
design
look at.
choices.
Yeah.
Lots of design choices.
yeah.
I mean, there were intentional kind of concepts that we wanted. We wanted an ambiguity to this facade. We wanted it to feel, it's not a punch window. It's not a curtain wall. We wanted that to read through this. There's a lot, but these are all aesthetic choices. And so, and I understand all your commentary. I can agree with all your commentary. I also understand how we came up with our concepts.
Yeah, and look, this is a building it's incredible that it's still there, quite frankly. So I think we're all happy that something's being done here.
No question.
Yeah.
And time is such an important factor in this. Every day that goes on, we're risking the collapse of this building. And that is a sad reality. This fire happened before I was born. And this building is receiving a lot of water. The congregation that has it cannot maintain it today. They need this closing to happen, this approval for that closing, so that the building can be salvaged.
I just want to add to those comments. I don't personally mind the sort of modern interpretive rebuild. I find it appropriate, even if maybe the detailing could be, explored further. But I disagree about the brickwork, because I feel like if you have a modern and a historic design and the brickwork is a consistent, that maybe that's okay. So we're not overly, bifurcating what's new and what's old. But I still have concerns about the north facade. I know it's not as important a facade as the south facade, but I do find that the way that has been handled in terms of the massing is a little awkward. It will be visible. I just think that maybe that's something that could take another look, because I think it's handled well on the south facade, more successfully, and maybe the north facade could benefit from a similar. Right now, it feels like it's just part of a different building that's kind of attached to this.
Could I add to that? If you recreated the original roof line, what is the effect on your project?
It will significantly reduce the size of some of the apartments.
But the ones on that floor, right?
Correct.
Only on that floor?
Correct.
And how many apartments does it affect? I'm just curious.
2.
Is it the ceiling height that it's affecting?
No, we would lose bedrooms.
That was it.
Yeah. So, it may, from a historic preservation point of view and what the rest of the public sees, it may be something you need to consider in order to make that a facade that a lot of people are going to see in the district. Yeah.
The thing that is distracting to me is the shallow pitch of that roof. And maybe it would be a flatter roof. Maybe it could be higher. Maybe that would be less distracting, actually. But that's also why I think it's important for us to get what that view from Jersey Avenue, from the north looking south, is going to be. And maybe I don't know that I even need the exact roof line to be recreated. So maybe there's some other solutions. I just don't think it's that shallow pitch of the roof. And I also would want to know what the pitch of the roof on the south facing towards 4th Street would look like and what we're going to see from there. Because it's that up above those windows where you have the flat roof tiles. I don't know how visible that's going to be. And there's just something about that is just throwing me off as well.
Okay.
I would agree that it's the shallow pitch on the north facade that's bothering me, and having it either be more in keeping with the other facades or something wholly different, like a flat roof.
Flat roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. I understand.
And I wanted to ask too. So the subdivision is that the existing congregation is keeping the building just to the north, and they're gonna rehab that and use it as their worship space.
That's correct.
Okay.
I have a question about the roof on the tower. You said, looking at the postcard, it's very clear that it's distinctive. I was just wondering what your rationale was for building one, at that level, very low.
So there were several aspects of this that were taken into consideration. Number one, the tower without a spire has existed for at least maybe 3/4 of a century. So that is become part of the fabric of that neighborhood. That is a non-visible spire. Also, I didn't think anything that we would introduce that has a higher pitch that is visible from the street created any appropriateness. It is no longer a church, no longer really needs a spire as a piece of typography or any symbolism. So we wanted it to disappear. And that was the only choice. That was a choice that we made to make it disappear. It was our choice. I don't know if that was the right choice or not, but we thought it was appropriate here.
Thank you.
So you're just matching, essentially you're just matching the roof that as it is now, correct? Or are you changing?
It's pretty
that?
much the same
Yeah.
pitch. Very
And
close.
so, and the spire came down even earlier than when the fire happened, correct?
Yes.
So that you said 3/4 of a century, so.
The
that was
spire
about-
came down in 1937,
Okay.
along with the windows.
Almost a century.
Are we ready to move on?
I have another question. I'm sorry about the roof line. So the roof line in that image and the roof line in your drawing on the south facade, you're saying they're the same pitch?
No.
Okay, so that was my original question. It was, are the roof lines the same? And is the volume under roof the same?
So what we did is we matched the highest point of the roof line along Jersey Ave. We matched that line to 4th Ave.
Right.
And then we took the same pitch of an angle on the cross gable and we maintained that. So the cross gables do have the same pitch. And so this, and let's see if it could, maybe from the rendering, this angle and this angle match.
Okay.
If I may, I did bring my protractor in last week, and I did check. The gables are the same. However, the gable on the south side is off of the tower by several feet. If you look at the circa 1905, 1910 postcard, you can see that the gable dies directly into the tower.
Right.
And that's not what's happening here. We're actually filling up some of that volume.
Much
Correct.
higher. That's, yeah.
But the angle, the pitch of the actual gable is the same. It does not terminate at the same place, though.
So we took the rough height of the adjacent townhomes and brought that across as the volume of the building, and then the intersection of the gable across here. And just so that I don't want to mislead anyone, the historic height, this point was in the original building, probably a couple of feet lower than what we have. What we did today is we matched the same gable height of the gable on 4th Street. So that is the same height of what was present on 4th Street, what was present on Jersey Ave, not necessarily 4th.
Right. So again, if you duplicated the roof line as it is in the image, you would lose volume inside. Again, it's bedrooms or size of units.
We would lose significant. We would lose practically an entire floor of apartments.
Right. And my fellow commissioner mentioned the tower, the spire. Not too long ago, I guess it was 2015, the Centenary Church on Pavonia Avenue replaced its spires, 4 of them, on that church. I don't know if that was by choice or by requirement of the commission, but it's a case where something significant was replaced. I'm not sure I'm suggesting that here, but just for the record.
And I think if this was a church, I would agree with that.
Oh, no,
completely.
this is 9 condos now, in the.
I understand. I know. I'm familiar with that project, and I think it's appropriate when it is a church, but it's no longer.
Centenary, excuse me, Centenary had the smaller towers reproduced in fiberglass, mainly as a decorative element. They are much smaller than what is here.
For sure.
What would have been here. And also to shed water off the building. It was a design choice by the developer at the time. So I think that Centenary is a slightly different, we're talking a whole different set of engineering.
And why did this spire come down? Was that mentioned? Why it was
The
taken down?
spire, it appears that the parish had fallen on hard times. It never had a lot of money. They seem to have stopped. They built the church and didn't completely finish it. The windows that I have seen did not look well constructed. They weren't quite beefy enough. They were a combination of a wood frame at the Great West window and the South window were a wood frame with iron frames within them with leaded glass puttied in. The weight must have been tremendous over that incredible expanse. The tower also started to pitch and to lean. There was bad maintenance. Even looking at the inside of the church today, or a few years ago, you could see where shortcuts were taken in decoration. I just don't think that they, my personal opinion is they just wanted to get the church open. It was built very quickly and probably not engineered correctly. So by 1937, you're talking, that's 50 years later. The windows gave way, the steeple had given way, and there is a story/legend that the steeple and or windows had been destabilized by Black Tom, the Black Tom explosion, which is probably more rumor than truth, because it seems to have happened to every church. But there are a lot of possibilities for why it came down, or why it had to come down. And the tax records actually show the scaffolding around the building, with the church being.
It might be nice to have that included in the presentation set.
Yes.
For next time.
Yes, that was something that I came across by accident. The originals were filed under the wrong address. So we only came across those recently. So that we were able to verify that, yeah, there was a problem 37 through 38 that they had to rectify. Did I answer that question correctly?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay.
Can I ask a question about lighting? I'm looking at the wall section. In my set, it's on Z35. It looks like there's a light fixture wall-mounted that may trace the outline of that C channel. Yeah, on the upper right.
We're not proposing any lighting at this time.
Okay, all right.
Well, and I had the only thing I noticed in one of the and there's some of the renderings, it looks like there's a bunch of uplighting
There's
too.
a
So.
few
Right, I
odd
saw that
lights.
too.
Yeah. We're not proposing any lighting at this time.
I mean, I think a really sensitive lighting package would be a wonderful thing to fold into this application.
Absolutely.
I would love to. Anyway, yeah, okay. If you say it's not part of the application, then.
I was just going to say that I wanted to remind the other commissioners that this is an adaptive reuse. For me, the volume that the adaptive reuse is creating is so close to the original church that that's probably one of the most important features of the design that's been proposed tonight. I think about the other Baptist church we heard, I believe it's this year, on Jersey Avenue as well. And there were large shed dormers that were visible from the public right-of-way on both sides of the building. Actually, on the south side of the building, there was a large projection that was created for new residential units. This one, I believe, is much more sensitive to the building than the one that we approved, on Jersey between Bright and York. And then I also think of this particular building more akin to almost a ruin, like St. John's. And when I think of St. John's adaptive reuse, I mean, if we all think about it, any of us that were on that, it had the facade, but then it had a large
Pretty much had nothing
apartment
else.
building inside of it. So I think this is a much more sensitive set of plans, and I for the most part like it. I agree with Commissioner Sakong about some detailing that probably needs to be looked at a little more. I think there's better ways to probably achieve what the architect's trying to achieve there in a modern way. But I don't think there's things here that are insurmountable. I think the client should feel confident that this commission's going to say, we're pretty close.
Any other questions? Staff comments now?
Would you like to see if anybody from the public would like to speak?
Right.
There are any members of the public present who would like to provide a comment on the presentation this evening? Please approach the public comment mic. Staff sees no members of the public present and recommends a motion to open and close public comment.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm just gonna say before, do we want to get into staff comments tonight? I mean, personally, I think from what I've heard, I think that I'm not ready to vote on this tonight, and that I think that there is a path forward here. I think we definitely need to see some revisions and have them come back as soon as they're able to have an updated renderings, updated facade details and elevations before I'm ready to vote on this personally. So I don't know if anyone else agrees, but maybe staff comments should then wait for the second the return based on any revisions they make.
I agree with that, and I also agree with Commissioner Sandkamp that there seems to be a very bright, very viable path forward. That
for
this
sure.
is good, this is very close, but that I do think that it will be greatly improved with some minor revisions.
Staff would like to make some very general comments, however.
That would certainly be helpful to me to hear some of staff comments.
And I think that it's important that we make sure that the applicant knows what they need to change going forward.
Absolutely.
Now, given that our attorney has said the applicant needs to know what they need to change going forward, I'm going to kind of springboard off of that. I think that probably the greatest deficiency of this concept is that we don't have definitive details. And that makes it very hard for staff and for the commission to see how everything fits together. That reveal that was brought up that separated the new from the old, that could work. I just don't know what it's going to be. I know what it's intended to be, but I don't really know what it's going to be. The extruded windows, I don't necessarily know, nor am I confident that we're going to be able to copy the Norman Lancet window with the quatrefoil atop in the campanile in an extrusion. I'd like to see that. There was a comment about a lighting package and that we are not proposing any lighting at this point. I think that lighting is rather important when you're having people living in a building. The architect and I, and staff and the proposed developer, we have been working on this. I think that it is good that the architect was able to get some feedback from the commission. I'm glad that we had the discussion about recreating the old church as opposed to having modern infill. I think that the modern infill, the modern construction is the way to go. The matching of the new brick with the brick on the historic facades, that is something that we had discussed. And I think that there is, on one level, there is some refinement to be done, okay? But at a deeper level, we really do need to have more in the way of actual detail, okay? Having an application that does not have window and door details or a lighting package. We have decks that do not have railings. It's a disadvantage to the commission, but it's also a disadvantage for the applicant because we can't really see what the vision is. Usually when an application comes to the commission, we try to make sure that it is buildable to the greatest extent that we can. And that requires a lot of detail. We just don't have that level of detail. I would like to see that put together by the next meeting. Okay?
I was just going to jump in and say, like, I was looking at this and I saw there's really there's a building section, but there's really no window or door sections, kind of like you mentioned. I think that's really important for us to see how that's all going to come together.
And on the south elevation, I think that aside from stylistic preference, I think that it will make more sense once those details have been provided. Again, I think the commission knows that I'm not a big fan of renderings. I think that they can often misrepresent what's going to be built. I do try to look at the black and white line drawings because, again, we don't have corruption from shadows and such. I think looking at the line drawings, it is that also helps to clarify the architect's intent. However, the line drawings themselves are not fully developed as well. Okay. The north facade gabled roof, the shallow gabled roof, I believe that is labeled, the frontispiece of that is labeled fascia. Again, I don't know the materials. I don't know the details. I'm assuming that the color will be Bahama brown that we took off of the rest of the building. Once all of those details are stitched together, I think that this will coalesce as a project that the commission can say, yes, this is appropriate, or yes, this is appropriate, however, and then grant conditions. That having been said, I did write a report. I think there are 21 conditions of approval that I recommended. You know, I am aware that the building is in terrible shape. I was surprised at the degradation that has taken place in the past less than 18 months, I think, if I'm correct. On the inside, I am a little bit fearful, but, and of course I don't want perfect to be the enemy of the good, but it does sound like the commission needs to have details to be able to actually vote clearly on a clear project. The commission is much more used to seeing details worked out rather granularly on the front on buildings.
Yeah. If I may, Dan, I would agree. More detail is going to be very helpful throughout the project, but more detail on the south facade in its current form is not going to help me. I think there are some changes in design that need to take place, and I'm not 100% against a modern interpretation. There are some very successful modern as a counterpoint to existing historic structure that is extremely successful. I just don't find the southern facade is doing that. I find that it's kind of rubbing against the original in a way that is not, doesn't feel correct to me.
I think that's right. We need the detail, but we also need substantive corrections to the application. And I'm always sympathetic to applicants when we are in this situation who may walk away and not know exactly what the commission is seeking from them. And part of the problem stems from you have multiple commissioners and we may not all agree on everything. But I think there have been a lot of comments from the commissioners. You can't please all the commissioners all the time. So for my part, I'll just provide my highlights. I think the most salient points I heard were about the fact that there are actually two primary facades on this building, and that we shouldn't neglect the importance of the south-facing facade on 4th Street. And, you know, there's already been plenty of discussion about potential solutions, but that definitely requires more attention. And I know that there was some talk about potentially having multiple brick colors to delineate the old from new. I know, I think it was Commissioner Gunther who said that might not be appropriate. I tend to agree. I would prefer a uniform brick type and color. I think the approach of having a sort of a line delineating old from new is appropriate, although what that line material is and how it appears is, I guess, an open question. But with those are the issues that I'm focused on. I guess I would turn it over to the rest of the commission to give you further direction.
If I could just end my comments with this. The commission is here to see if this is here to determine whether or not this is an appropriate intervention, not to really get into the granular details of it. And the commission has been pretty receptive to design professionals' opinions as to why a certain intervention is appropriate. Okay? And I can have a discussion with the architect as to using the standards for rehabilitation, the standards for new construction. I can have a conversation explaining why or why not something may or may not work. Okay? But it will be up to the architect to make that design determination to say, I think this is appropriate because. And if there was perhaps a weakness in the presentation tonight, it might have been that the details didn't clarify the design, and the design was not explained in accordance with the Secretary's standards.
That would be helpful to me to understand what road we're traveling down.
Yes. So I guess the devil could quote scripture. I could defend this or, not defend it. But I don't have the details. When I have the details, I'd feel much more comfortable making a set of comments describing why something is or may not be appropriate. But I think at this point, yes, maybe it can be handled differently. I think on the north elevation especially, my personal preference would be to see a steeper slope, but maybe a flat roof might be the way to go. It is up to the design professional to be able to explain why this choice was done, and using the standards to justify those design choices.
I wanted to follow up on that. I think an example of that tonight was the discussion about the spire, brief though it may have been. At first, the rationale was just, it's not in alignment with the time. I asked for further clarification, just as a point of order as well. I'm completely kosher, I guess, with the Happy Hanukkah. I'm completely good with the level of this roof right now. Just want to make that clear. I would also say with the detail, though, with such large windows on the south facade, it would be nice to see what's going to be viewable through them, because they're so large and can be seen through the sidewalk or from the sidewalk. But I want to recognize the amount of work that went into this. This was clearly laborious to do, and I want to recognize that we're almost there, and we all want to see something built here. So, yeah.
So are there any other comments from any of the commissioners? Do you have any questions for me?
Anybody else?
No, you have a question?
Tony, you've been very quiet this evening.
I would just want to give the applicant an opportunity to ask questions of us, if that would help clarify where this is going and what you might want to bring back to us.
I feel that is a very good idea, especially since this building seems to be in a kind of danger of coming down. So do we want to preserve this building or have it preserved or be another St. John's? This is what I fear to happen if we don't give the applicant the opportunity to come back with something that they know they have a direction. Otherwise, they're just gonna be in the dark. So if you would want to ask some questions to get more clarification so that when you come back, you know, have a better chance, that would be probably good.
We do have, from the audience, the contract purchaser has been waving and making hand gestures at me, which seem to be polite and happy. So he might want to address the commission at some point.
Of course.
But before you do that, I would prefer that we've had design discussions before with this commission, and they, in my experience, have often led to more confusion than to any clarity, unless there is a real consensus among the board that, you know, don't do this or do that. I don't know how helpful that will be, because already we've gotten conflicting. I mean, my notes here, it's, you know, good, bad, and maybe okay.
And always remember for the applicant team that you need five. You need 5 of us, and there's 9 of us. So you need 5 for the vote.
Well, this is, you know, why we have kind of informal straw polls and discussions up on the dais, discussing it amongst ourselves. So we can see if it's not unanimous, at least you may have a consensus.
So, would you like to introduce your client?
Yes, absolutely. This is Mr. Vincent Prieto, and he will be the developer, and he is the contract purchaser. If I may add as well, you know, I know he'll probably touch on this, in addition to the structural integrity of the building too. You know, I know that the seller is also very anxiously waiting for the sale. I don't mean to be dismissive of your comments in any way, shape, or form, but I do know that they have been waiting for quite some time to see something move here as well.
We have all been waiting
Yes.
for a very long time.
I have been waiting since the first week I started the job.
Exactly.
The week
Exactly.
of July the 23rd of 2002.
This property is very recognizable by the neighborhood. Everyone's aware of it. They're aware of its condition. They love the building. I'm sure they're going to be happy that it's finally being taken care of, but now's not the time to rush through it after all these years of waiting.
Yes, sir, please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you will provide this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? State your full name for me, please.
I do. Vincent Prieto, Prieto.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. And first of all, you know, I appreciate all the comments, very well thought out. I've sat on boards like this before, not historical, but planning and zoning boards, and I take pride in making sure that the people that sit on them do their due diligence, so I really appreciate that. Want to give a special thanks actually to Dan, because Dan actually has been really instrumental in teaching me how we would get here. And it's been a long journey. This has been almost about 2 years since I started this, since I saw the church. I got kind of involved with it. And first thing that was told to me, don't touch it with an 18-foot pole. And I did not scare away from it. So let me give you a little background. I'm actually a construction official, and that was my daytime job amongst other things that I did. But actually, I'm a building inspector, plumbing, fire, so I actually have a lot of the disciplines and was construction official in some major cities, City of Union City, Secaucus, Guttenberg, so I've actually done a lot of construction inspections to make sure that they get built properly. The one thing that I can tell you, Dan has sort of shown me what things we needed to be able to get here. I thought we were almost getting here because we need to get through the other phase so I can take control of the building. Right now, I do not have control of the building, even though that we've had pieces of the roof blow off that we have taken. The building gets more water inside than it does outside when it rains. So I can tell you that, and I would welcome for somebody to even come look at it, because as a code official, I see it in a different way. So Dan actually has been very gracious. We went out there. We were there hours, taking windows off. Spoke with him in the last week over an hour on the phone. Then Friday, I sat with him over 2 hours to, trying to get this to where it is, because sort of the urgency. As a former code official, I'm going to be totally honest with all of you. This, to me, is an imminent hazard because how it is. And if you go in it and see it, you'll see what I'm talking about. So there is a little bit of an urgency to it. And the church can't take care of it. We had the bridge that stands outside, a piece fell. Your mayor-elect actually gave me a call. We actually fixed it and cobbled it up, because at the end, this was like in the summer. So I've been staying on top of it, but I don't own the building. I don't have control of the building. So I have to get permission when I'm going to go in and all that to get, so saying all that, I just want to explain that I want to make sure, as heading forward, I want to make sure I have a clear understanding, because I was fine with all the stipulations that Dan put on this, because we want to make this work, and it actually has to make sense for us. We didn't try to create something grotesque. We tried to do as much as we can so we can build a beautiful building that is going to give back to the character that it had and the beauty of it. And as you see, it is a focal point. So I fell in love with it when I saw it. My wife, when I drove it by, she wasn't the same thing. He goes, "Are you crazy?" But at the same time, I see the potential with it, and it's very important. So again, I just wanted to put that in more as a construction code official, that I can tell you that's what I've been fighting to get this going as quickly as possible, because until I get through this hurdle and then the next hurdle, I can't get, and stabilize it. And probably one of the first things we're going to do is probably try and stabilize the building and take that bridge out, because that bridge in itself is iffy in itself. So again, I wanted to make that. And like I said, if anybody would want to see the building inside, I'm more than happy to show them. But again, I'm just trying to get to the next phase. And then again, I want to thank you for all the time and effort that you have put on this.
Thank you. I am going to strongly advise the commissioners not to visit the site with Vinny, mainly because that would be an ex parte communication.
Yeah.
Not a great idea. Everything should be on the record. And staff does acknowledge that time is of the essence. I've been in the building. Okay. It doesn't look really great to me. But I think that instead of the pressure being put on the commission to give approvals so that you can move to the next step, the pressure really lies with the design team.
And I'm fine
At
with
this
that,
point.
Dan. I just want to make sure that as long as you know where we have to go, so that way I have a resource of, to get here before the next month, because as I said to you, I am very flexible in what we're doing. Obviously, it has to make sense also, because we're trying to keep certain amount to be able to have the units that we have and all that. So I want to kind of explain that. That's why the north side was done a little bit different, because that way it gives us a little room. We're trying to follow the contour with the gables on the south side to look at it, giving that mixture of a modern look with and preserving what was there, so you can see the difference. Again, but as long as I know exactly where we are, I don't mind making changes in that, but
That's
I
the
don't want to
hard
come
part.
back here and keep spinning our wheels. And the reason I came up was because there is times of the essence, and I just wanted to back up what Dan had said, as from a code professional, of what I would do if I be the code here, and knowing what I know today. That's why I'm saying times of the essence.
Yeah. Okay. The next, unfortunately, you don't have control of the building. You need to get approval from this commission and from the zoning board before you're able to close on the building.
Right.
Okay? To be able to get that, those approvals, the drawings have to be completed, if not rethought in part. Okay? Details have to be provided. Okay?
I'm okay with that.
I think that that's very, very clear. Certain treatments to the building might want to be reconsidered. I think the commission's been kind of, they've given you ideas, especially along the south facade, the north facade. I think those were the two major
Well, so in that,
facades.
towards that interest, maybe now is the right time to,
Make a list.
no, to have the architect have any, pose any questions if you
Yes.
have any.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank you all. They were very insightful, great comments. There is nothing I disagree with. I understand, and there's a level of detail that you need me to bring. I think that we're there pretty much as far as concept envelope of the building, except for the south facade, how we're going to make that little change. And I think the overall picture is there. I just am extremely worried about time, because time is against us. Not only there are contractual obligations, the church is very ready to pull the contract as well. And then there's also the reality that this building's ready to collapse. And that's it.
Respectfully, I don't
And I
think
understand.
that matters at this point.
Understood.
We still, like everyone said here, well, the majority of the commissioners here, they still have their concerns. I completely understand that time is of the essence for you guys, and I completely understand that you're in a bind. But as it stands here, Dan, who is one of our experts, says that your portfolio, what was submitted, was not detailed enough for him to even guide us in staff comments to say, hey, I think you guys should still go ahead with this, but here is, my concerns and what should be addressed. Dan will put that. And if Dan's not comfortable at this time because of lack of information, that's just where we stand.
I do just want to add, we do have the memo, which I thought, as I read it, did recommend approval. So, again, I do not mean to be in any way dismissive of the comments, but if there are things that we can address by conditions of approval, we would obviously, I think we've shown that the design team and the owner are really open to working with Dan and with everybody to bring any elements that you guys may need.
In conclusion, I'd like to say that my memo was written, the original memo said that you should not be granted a certificate of appropriateness for the work. After a month, I rewrote the memo, okay? Still lacking some information, but being as broad as I could in all of my conditions and as generous as I could in all of my conditions. Given the month that had transpired between the last meeting and this meeting. Now I have testimony from the architect and questions from the commission, okay, which further speak to which would further inform my comments. I still would recommend a certificate of appropriateness for the building, but as the commission has pointed out, and I do not disagree with them, this is not a complete application at this point. I think that's the clearest, simplest way of putting it. The next meeting of the commission is January the 12th. You can ask for if you need to, you can ask for a special meeting of the commission. But I think that, and we have had this conversation, and we can put it on the record, that this is a very large project, and a lot of resources need to be put into the presentation of this project, into finalizing the details of this project before coming to the commission. This is a little bit different than going to a zoning board, where it's a little bit more conceptual, I guess. They might not ask you about the texture of the bricks. They're going to do that here. That being said, I think if you really concentrate on your details, you will be able to see where there are potential issues that the commission's already brought up and may reiterate. And then you can fix them.
So this process, this dialogue between the applicant and the commission, this is an iterative process that sometimes an applicant only comes once, and sometimes we have to go back and forth. But you've made it abundantly clear that time is of the essence here. We need to move quickly. So I think a few of us have now explicitly offered the opportunity to clarify and kind of focus test if there are any areas where we want to clarify. I would say, let's do this and move on. If you have any questions or
I didn't
go
mean
for
to
it.
put pressure on the board. The pressure's on me. There's a lot of details that I need to put together, and just so that the board understands, and partially I'm just thinking through this. If the commission is on January 12th, I need to submit by January 2nd. That's New Year's, and we have Christmas. That means working through the holidays, I basically have less than 10 days to produce a whole lot of details and lighting plans and everything else. And I know it would be impossible to complete that. My team would be unable to do so to the level that I think would really satisfy everyone. However, I want to get to a point where we are on a place where you are comfortable to move forward. And I will promise you that I will do my best to get to that point, even though we're talking 10 days, including Christmas and New Year's. I will do my best to get these details, but and the pressure is completely on me, but it is in a critical stage. And we have a very difficult, critical path that if we don't meet this deadline, and if I don't meet this deadline, we're in danger of losing this church. And I thank you all, and I think you could have been more clear. There is some ambiguity as far as design intent, but I think those are design intentions, not necessarily what the details. If I have the details that support my design intent, I'm sure everyone would understand. And I appreciate you all, and I appreciate Dan very much. He's been a tremendous help throughout this whole process.
And you have everything that you need from us, right? Like is there anything else that anyone here could clarify for you?
No, I think every comment was very eloquently made, and I took notes, mental notes, and a few when I got back to my seat, and I will do my best to comply.
And if you need more time, when is the next meeting after the January?
The next one would be February 9th.
We don't have much time, so it's like do or die on the side of the applicant. So
I'm just going to throw this out. In the past, we've had applicants who have come to the commission and with incomplete projects, and they have come back with an incomplete project. And they get told the same thing. I would prefer, I think it would be preferable, and the commission can disagree. Given my experience, I think that it would be preferable to try and complete as much as you can, okay? And ask for a special meeting. I'm sure that the commissioners would be more than happy to sit for a special meeting once you've gotten your details together.
I would also like to offer, and anyone who disagrees, please let me know, that, while a lighting package would be nice to have, I feel like as long as the building envelope and the massing were addressed, that's the critical element, those are the critical elements, that if a lighting package needs to be handled separately in the interest of advancing this and getting it to a place where the building can be secured, that I would be comfortable voting without dealing with lighting.
yeah, I appreciate that.
Anyone else? For me, it's all about the south facade. I think you're making every effort, and I trust staff to understand what's appropriate replacement of, you're concerned about extrusions, you're concerned about the brick. I know we have great staff, they'll address that. We've trusted them before. My concern is the south facade. You may not need my vote to get this passed, but if I can be helpful so that you don't have to come back again, the south facade is kind of in between. It's not old and it's not new. There's some forms there that are bothering me, particularly on the top where the glass fills the top of your building. It kind of feels like an arch, but it's not the same arch. So I think it's competing with what's happening on the main facade. I wouldn't try to do any kind of arch there myself, but that's totally up to you. But I think it looks like you wanted to do an arch and you couldn't, is how it feels to me. And maybe the amount of glass to brick, maybe the proportions aren't right there. So I'm hoping when you revisit this, I could probably move off needing it to be recreated, but it's going to have to be something that feels right with the rest of the building. And that's where my main concerns are.
I concur wholeheartedly with that.
Yeah.
I also wanted to make clear my concerns with the south facade. Personally, I think the roof to, divider windows, to put it simply, I don't like them.
Could you explain which windows you're talking
Yes.
about? I'm a little
Yes,
lost.
sorry. On the south facade, the new windows proposed in the
In the triangle?
yeah.
Okay, and the gable.
And the gable, the triangle down. I think, one, we need to see what's going to be visible through the windows. Two, maybe consider having them resized. I don't want to personally make any changes that will impact the layout of the apartments themselves, but this is clearly a primary facade, as has been made clear. I also would say if those windows are to be kept, as Dan was saying, a little more elaboration on the rationale behind the artistic choices behind those. If that were to be made more clear at a later meeting, I would certainly be amenable to seeing your point of view. But as of now, I think we're all in concurrence that we are making our reservations known for next time.
Just one quick thought. The window treatments can be a very difficult issue to work with because you have different owners and such, and we usually don't get into window treatments. But sometimes with an expansive glass like this, we do recommend strongly that the developer pick a type of a window treatment and use it throughout the building. Hint, hint. Not that everybody has to have their blinds closed at the same time, but just that there is some sort of, general uniformity. The larger question that I have, other than curtains and shades, is how you are going to treat the spandrels where the floor assembly is, where the ceilings are.
Right.
And by the way, the notes on the wall section actually call for the vision lights to be stained and leaded. So I just, that's also another kind of, there's, I think, just a lot of ambiguity that needs clarification.
Does
Understood.
Does
Thank
that
you.
kind of sound like what you were trying to say or close to? Okay.
We're all rooting for you.
Yes.
Absolutely.
If that wraps up everybody's comments, staff would recommend that the commission make a motion to carry this application to the January 12th regular
Motion.
HBC meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
They got it.
So we have Tony and we have Stephen, all in favor.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all, and thank you all for letting
Thank
me
you.
try and make my case.
Iris, would you like a break? Yes. We'll
Thank
take
you all
a
and
short
have a
break.
good night.
Maybe 10 minutes. We'll come back at 8:30.
Yep.
Or 5.
What?
We'll do 8, yeah, 8:30.
8:30.
8:30.
Okay. Thank you.
You ready to roll, Iris? Okay, are we all ready?
Yep.
Call the meeting back to order. It is 8:31 p.m. And if you want to call the next case,
Okay. And just to confirm, we are going, is that
8B.
okay? So we are going to do the demolition review, 32 Sherman Place, B25-1002, carried at the request of the applicant from the November 17th, 2025 regular HPC meeting.
Good evening, Jennifer Berard of the firm Wells, Jaworski, and Liebman on behalf of the applicant. The applicant is the owner of property located at 32 Sherman Place, which is also known as Block 3702, Lot 44. In May of this past year, the applicant had submitted an application for demolition for the property, and thus pursuant to Chapter 105 and Section 345-30 of the city's zoning ordinances, we're here today to confirm for the Historic Preservation Commission that the subject property possesses no cultural, historic, or architectural significance which would prevent its demolition. To provide a brief background before our expert does, this property is approximately 0.18 acres. It maintains a 2.5-story building, which was constructed in the late 1890s. The property, as you can see on the photograph on the screen, is flanked by two 4.5-story buildings, which sort of dwarf the building and completely engulf it. What you're going to hear today from our expert, Mr. Peter Primavera, is that over time and prior to the applicant taking ownership of the property has, the structure has undergone extensive alterations, including, among other things, the fact of the removal of the front porch, a replacement of the exterior cladding and facade, a replacement and relocation of the size and type of the windows, a replacement and relocation of the door and size, a replacement of all of the architectural details, with the installation and introduction of modern materials. And as a result of that, the property in the building as it stands today retains relatively none of the original characteristics that it once maintained. Further, I just want to highlight for the board that this property is not designated as a local landmark. It is not located within a designated historic district, and it is not listed on either the state or national register. Therefore, this commission is charged with reviewing this application under section 345-30E1, which provides a review of properties that have not been designated as historic nor as a landmark property. And as the testimony is going to show, and as we're going to review, the building's age, its architecture, historical associations, and most importantly, its retaining integrity, it does not meet the criteria that's set forth in that section. And that's because nearly all of the architectural features have been removed and replaced. So based on the evidence that we're going to be providing you with this evening, and consistent with the reports that have been prepared by both Mr. Peter Primavera as well as Mr. Robert Wise, the building located at 32 Sherman Place fails to meet the historical significance threshold, and approval of this demolition permit can be provided. It is appropriate and it is consistent with the city's ordinances. So unless the commission has any questions of me at this time, I'd like to call Mr. Peter Primavera.
Do you swear that the testimony you will provide this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your full name for me.
Peter Primavera, Primavera.
Thank you.
Staff notes that Mr. Primavera has previously testified in front of this board and is an expert in the field of historic preservation.
Okay, thank you. I know Mr. Primavera has been before this board on several occasions, but Peter, maybe you could just give us a little truncated response of your background.
Let me zoom in on Jersey City. I've been working in Jersey City since 1979, when the Army Corps of Engineers started the emergency drift removal projects on the Hudson. We were on the team to evaluate the docks, the piers, the collapsed materials that were all along the waterfront on the New York side and the Jersey City side. So I go back to when I was 3 years old. Well, no, I was actually 18 when we did that. Worked on the reservoir project for the civil engineer. Worked on the Riverview project, which is a park project for the city architect. Worked on the embankment 4 different times, once for the guy who owns it all this time, twice for other alternative developers who look to do something with it. And at one point, we even consulted with the mayor at the time, a long time ago, 22 years ago, on options for the embankment. That besides scores and scores of other historic preservation projects that some of you have seen me present and talk about.
So in addition to your extensive background in architecture and historic preservation, you have also a little bit of a focus and a uniqueness with Jersey City, is that correct?
Jersey City and the entire Gold Coast.
Okay, and you are familiar with the city's ordinances, in particular also Chapter 105 and Chapter 345?
Yes.
Okay, and have you had an opportunity to visit the site?
Yes.
And have you had an opportunity to review and prepare a report for this board's consideration?
Yes.
Okay, and have you also had an opportunity to review the report that was prepared by Mr. Robert Wise in May of 2019?
I did. I very carefully analyzed Robert's report, and I actually used it as an appendix in my report, if you've seen the report.
So would it be accurate to say that you agree with the position of Mr. Robert Wise with respect to the lack of historic significance for this property?
100%. He concluded in a very objective manner why he felt it did not meet the criteria under the demolition ordinance. And he was working on the previous version of why it's not historically significant.
Not to interrupt, can you just clarify to the commission that that was presented to the zoning board, not to this board?
Correct. That was presented in response to a determination of significance.
Appeal, yeah.
Right.
So the board has a copy of Mr. Wise's report. However, that was presented to the zoning board, not to this board.
Right, you
Just
haven't
to make sure we're all on the same page in terms of familiarity as to that report.
That's why I included it in mine, so you had that.
Now, if you can review for us the findings from your report, but generally, would you find that this property maintains historical significance?
No.
Okay. Now, I know you've prepared for us also a little PowerPoint presentation. If you could review for us the PowerPoint, give us a little context of the setting, and advise as to the details of your report.
Sure. I'm going to try to run through this fairly quickly, which means that the court reporter will probably have to stop me because I speak fast. Please don't hesitate. Before I do, I would be remiss to not point out to this commission and Commissioner Sukong his Knightsbridge Armory project that is getting so much acclaim. If you haven't seen it, or if you have the opportunity to present it to the board, it is an extraordinary example of a very complicated project with many, many thematic issues and an adaptive reuse that's getting acclaim all over the greater New York area and even beyond. And Austin was key to that design team on the Knightsbridge Armory in the Bronx, right? Not just sputtering you up, I just had to say, you know, I know it's a great project and I know you put a lot into it. And it's a great example. It's a great example to see how a complex rehabilitation can be done properly. So let me then, that's me. Here we are. I'm going to, some of these are self-explanatory, so I'm not really going to talk much about them. Primary facade with the two buildings on either side. Our building was built in about 1890s. These two buildings on either side were built about almost 40 years later in 1929 period. So they obviously were out of character with the domestic scale of the Sherman Place. The rest of it is pretty much, you know, 2-story, 2.5-story, 3-story buildings that are individual domestics. As Jennifer said, those are the historic districts in town. We're not in one of those. Another rather dramatic view from bird's eye of the setting and where our building sits in the setting. I think it's very telling, context and setting. Another one, just go down to about 50 feet down the street and look back, and you can see our building disappears pretty quickly behind a asphalt parking lot in the front yard, and you're going to see the previous condition shortly. Back to our building, and I'm not going to go through the details right now. At the end, I will summarize the changes you see here, but I'm going to get to that through the historical documentation that we have that was presented in the report and since. So there's two primary historical documents that we're working from. The 1935 tax map, which you saw, tax map, tax card, and photograph, which Maggie cited in her report, and the Hunter/Maggie report. This is pretty poor quality, but there's some things we know right away, and I've listed them down the right side. The chimney has changed. That's the original chimney, it appears. The next two arrows are two windows that no longer exist. Those are on where the primary facade turns the corner, so they would be visible from the street. Those are behind stucco, if they even exist at all. So those two windows don't exist at all. And then the other thing, to speak to the setting and the overall architectural character of a Queen Anne period from the Queen Anne house from the Victorian period, you would expect a beautiful wrought iron fence. You would expect a house that's over 40 years old to have mature plantings, as it did at that point. And then hard to see other things. So let's go to 1975, and we can detail the other 28 plus changes that have happened to the primary facade. Here we go. I'm not going to read all of them because I'm going to assume you had a chance to read my report. But as you can see, I kind of like the 1968 Volkswagen Beetle, but I don't think we can consider that as part of the historic character. But you see from the foreground the wrought iron fence that was there originally. You can see as we work left to right, going from bottom left to up the side of the building, we've got a bricked in front porch, which was not original. It doesn't show in the previous photograph, no bricked in front porch. The front porch has then been removed. The window and the third arrow is a long, tall window, which would be characteristic of Queen Anne houses, and I'm going to talk about what are the characteristics of Queen Anne houses, one of which is a building window, is a window form, which is generally a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 times as high as it is wide. That wasn't a fixed ratio by every architect, but that's characteristic. They wanted that verticality to be expressed in the Queen Anne period. Going up, you can see that we've got siding that's changed. As we all know, Queen Anne buildings had very ornate types of siding and tall windows. We have windows that seem to be somewhat in the location of the present windows, but as you can see next to the modern comparison, modern photograph, those windows have changed in size, in shape, and particularly the window to the right was a bay type window, and that's no longer a bay type window. So every window, including the 2 up in the gable ends, has been changed in form and in materials. Going further up, chimney's changed. It's gotten shorter all of a sudden, and that's the 1975 documentation of what I think is the current condition right now. I think it's the chimney is pretty similar. I don't know. It's hard to see from that photograph. Again, up in the gable end of that bracket, the brackets are gone. The window has been changed. The siding's been changed. We do have the tower shape, the 2 gable end, and then next to it the tower shape, which I think the building has retained. Those 2 elements, which I think in the city's report, in the report that Robert Wise did, in my report, we all agree those 2 elements are what has survived. And then going around a little farther, as we keep going, I point out the window that's changed in the tower. Below the tower, you can see the double columns and the balcony that existed at one time, and the window that was behind it, which is certainly not the window that's there now. Coming down a little further, you see, again, the whole porch has been completely removed. The front door, obviously completely removed with a modern door, as you can see in the existing photograph. The front steps, balustrades, gone, and back to the wrought iron fence, which is part of the setting. So that gives you a quick idea of, I believe we generally lump that into about 28 changes to the primary facade of the building. Again, going back and emphasizing what I just said, you can see the building's been completely stripped of all of those elements that I just delineated. Over 25, I think right now it's 28. Vinyl windows, different window sizes from the original, different window placements than the original. The roof on the tower and the roof above the main block of the building are asphalt shingle. That certainly wasn't the case originally. Inappropriate shingles were added at some point. You don't put shingles on Queen Anne buildings. It's just not something you do. And at some point somebody added Queen Anne shingles and the paved front floor. But I think the most profound change and the change that has the most ominous outlook for the building is this building was stuccoed before the current owner. All this work was done before the current owner took ownership of the building. And as you all know as preservationists, when you stucco a clapboard building, a wood finished building, what you're doing is sealing it. I hate to think what's behind that stucco right now. To say that the original walls are back there is a stretch. To say that they are in anything resembling original condition or in good condition is a stretch. We're probably looking at dry rot. We're probably looking at all the other conditions that we all know from the technical briefs from the National Park Service and other studies means that finishes on the building have been sealed behind a hermetically sealed stucco, which allows no air to pass and therefore all sorts of bad things to happen, not only moisture but dry rot. Right across the street, pretty good example of a Queen Anne Victorian with a lot of what it's got. The only thing that this one is notably not got, and I just do this for comparison, it's right across the street. You see a couple of pretty good versions of Victorian era buildings here. I would point out again the long tall windows, which are the 2-to-1 ratio. I would also point out on the gray building, the siding has been changed. You can see the siding has been changed on that whole building. But they've managed to retain a lot of the character defining elements that we just described have been stripped from 32 Sherman. Again, back to the ordinance, and what we're doing is we're talking about, and I won't bore you with this because I know you know it and you've seen it in the report. We're talking about the age. We're talking about the structure, identifying components and elements of the structure. The building that's associated with events that have made a significant history. Well, we can't say this is associated with a person, place, or event that's made significant contributions to the history, either local, state, or national. The building structure was associated with the life of a person who was significant. Well, that's not the case. Whether the building structure has embodied distinctive characters of a style. I think I just listed over 28 on the primary facade alone that are gone. And then down to 6, whether the building survives, has yielded or may be reasonably likely to yield information important to history or prehistory. As a historic preservation expert, just on this block alone, there are many, many better examples of Queen Anne Victorian houses which are existing and, in some cases, actively being restored. So the ability of this building to provide any new information is virtually zilch. And like I said before, talking about the stucco on the building, it's likely, but I don't know for a fact. I have not looked behind the stucco, but it's likely, as we all know, when you stucco a building of this age, what's behind it is not in good shape and not likely to tell us anything about Victorian architecture, Victorian era architecture, or Queen Anne architecture.
If you could just hold for 1 second, and before we
Can you just make sure you talk in, there's a mic there, you can turn it on. Yeah, just tap. Yeah, perfect. There we go.
Okay, yeah.
If we could just go back to 2 slides prior, item 1. So we are reviewing this in accordance with section E1, and the first provision refers to a structure that has existed for 50 years or more.
Yes.
We meet that.
Yeah.
Would you say, in your professional opinion, however, that we would meet any of the other, for instance, the architectural style or historical associations associated with the Victorian Queen Anne?
No.
Okay, thank you. And now if you could, and just to confirm, the building has not been designated as a landmark?
No.
Nor is it located within a historic district?
That's correct.
And it has not been associated, to the best of your knowledge or the city's knowledge, with any special event, historical event, historic person? And as you also confirmed, it does not maintain any of the workmanship that would be characteristic of that time period either?
Correct.
Or any of those elements that actually exist?
Correct.
And so that's the first step of the review, is whether or not we met all of those elements, and then we review the integrity of the structure itself. Is that correct?
Yes.
If you could please review for us the criteria for the
Okay,
integrity.
here's the integrity criteria that's listed in the ordinance. And as you know, as I've said to some of you before in the past, Jersey City has 2 different ways of evaluating whether something is historically significant. Under your landmark ordinance, which actually creates this commission and creates the original landmarks ordinance used the National Register criteria, which involved the 4 criteria: person, place, events, ability to contribute information. Then there's also the 7 components that are considerations, like grave sites can't be and other kinds of things can't be. And then the 7 integrity aspects, considerations, are different than the 7 that you have in the demolition ordinance. So we've got 2 different ways in Jersey City of measuring historical significance. Under the demolition ordinance, I'll be very frank, and thanks for leading on this question, is the threshold for determining what is historically significant and could be or should be saved is lower than if we use the National Register criteria. I won't waste your time on, oops, going the wrong way. I won't waste your time on going through the National Register criteria, but what you see is a lot of red nose. And these are not opinions, these are facts.
So even though we're not subject to those particular
We're
requirements,
not subject to that. So what we want to say is that we took that into consideration, because it's a very formal, as you know, process of evaluating significance. It's time tested since the National Historic Preservation Act was put into place in 1966, and it's been used for many, many years, how you develop an argument for significance. So I wanted to make sure you knew that I'd done it both ways.
I will say,
and arrive at the same conclusion. But this is not, this National Register criteria is not part of the demolition ordinance.
I'd want to push back against that a little bit. In 105-3, it does say applications for permits to demolish in whole or part a building or structure or to reconstruct the facade of any building or structure shall require the private approval of the zoning officer for compliance with the provisions of Chapter 345 regarding historic preservation and other applicable sections of 345, as well as the criteria for evaluation set forth in 36 CFR 60-4. Isn't that those requirements?
those relate to properties that have already been designated as a landmark or are in historic districts, which more, I believe it precisely mirrors Section E2 of 345-30. And so I think that's where the distinction is that E1 is for properties that have not been designated nor are landmarks. E2, which mirrors that language that you just referenced, is for properties that have been.
And I anticipated that question, and that's why I included these slides right here. That if we did want to consider a more disciplined, detailed 36 CFR 800 National Historic Preservation Act criteria for evaluating significance, you have 4 criteria, the ones you see on the screen in front of you. We don't meet any of them. You have 7 considerations. None of those apply to this building, of course. And then you have 7 aspects of integrity. And in the National Register, the way they use the aspects of integrity is, it's not that you have any one of those. You've got to demonstrate that you have them all, or the most of them, in order to maintain integrity. Again, I flipped to a slide you've seen from me before with the definition of the word integrity. Integrity is wholeness, is a cohesiveness, it's a unity. It's not some things have integrity and some things don't. If I may, again, back to where we were before. The specific criteria in the demolition ordinance is what you've got in front of you. And you see red-nosed, everyone except for the first one. And I'd like to speak to the first one a little bit. Location. The building is in the original location, no two ways about it. The question is, in part, the setting and also the modification to the footprint of the building. The building is not the same footprint, as you saw from the original slides showing the building from above, and the porch is gone. So the footprint, in part, you could say the location has been modified. It hasn't been moved. The main block has not been moved. I want to be very open and honest about that. Try to be open and honest about everything. But that location is a little compromised, but I put yes. It's still in the same location, just altered. Conclusion, real quickly. According to the ordinance, we don't see that it meets any of the criteria, either under the National Register criteria or the criteria specifically cited only within the demolition ordinance for integrity. Doesn't meet the integrity test, as we say in the preservation world. And so the appropriate treatment for the building would be that it be demolished because it doesn't meet any of those criteria.
If we could just, sorry, go back to the integrity. I know you
Sure.
reviewed for us the location
Sure. I can speak
and
to
why, yes, the building is in its general location, but it has been altered over the year. If you could review for us the remaining provisions for
Yeah,
integrity.
let's go through the 7. And so location, you just heard me talk about. Design, well, when you're missing 28 of the primary character defining features of a Victorian area building just on the facade alone, it's hard to say what you've got left is a Queen Anne Victorian building. And then the treatments that happened to it after that, before our owner got it, like the stucco and the changes to the windows and the replacement of the windows, those all compromised the design of the building. The setting, well, I think, there's 2 periods of significance, and I don't want to belabor this, but I think it's relevant. You all understand the concept of the period of significance, and I think the period of significance is certainly from the late 19th century well into the mid 20th century. The majority of the buildings that we would consider historic or character defining to this Sherman Place area are buildings from the Victorian period. And so I think that when we talk to the setting, what we've got on either side of it, though, are 2 buildings that fall outside of the Victorian period. 2 big apartment buildings from 1929 that are not in keeping with the style, mass, configuration, and they're not set back like all the other residential buildings in the block. Those 2 buildings are all the way up to the sidewalk. So they change the setting incredibly. The materials, I think I don't have to review that quickly again for you. I talked about that already. All the materials that have been stripped from the building. And frankly, I don't think there are any materials on the facade of the building that are from the period of significance. Nothing left, including the roof and the tower, which have asphalt shingles on them. Everything else has been replaced. Everything else.
So even the roof, which might maintain the shape that
Yeah, we think those 2 elements of the roof, the tower and that gable end tower-like effect, and then the chimney sticking up, would be reminiscent and consistent with a Queen Anne building.
But all of
That
those
shape.
materials have been replaced.
But all the materials on them were replaced, and the chimney's been modified. And then all the trim and finishes have been changed on all of them. So next to the workmanship, well, workmanship is gone. Simple as that. I don't know how to say it any plainer. The workmanship has been taken over by the vinyl siding king and the stucco king as they came through Jersey City. The feeling, there is a very specific, the ordinance doesn't define the word feeling, and that's always a problem for me when I come to talk to you. Feeling is defined in the National Register criteria, and I have the definition if you'd like to see it. But feeling is, does the property express the time period? What is significant about it? You could say this about it. If it's a Frank Lloyd Wright building, does it still look like a Frank Lloyd Wright building? If you could say this is a building that Washington slept in, does it still look like the building Washington actually slept in? In this case, does it feel like a Victorian period building? Again, back to over 28 changes and all the inappropriate modifications. The feeling is completely gone. And then the association, as Jennifer just said, we don't have it associated with other historic properties, events, persons, a historic district that's been designated. So that goes back to the 7 criteria.
Could I
Jennifer,
ask for a point of clarification, if it's
Yes.
appropriate? In the way that you are arguing about the setting, is it your position that that the integrity of the setting is established only by the immediately adjacent buildings and not
Oh, no.
by
No, definitely
buildings
not.
down the block?
Definitely not. And as I said, I tried to be careful about that. Is the rest of the block, particularly that block, and almost all of that Sherman Place area that's been studied, has domestic scale buildings. There's very few multi-story apartment buildings. So I would not deny, and I showed you a picture of a great Victorian house right across the street, Queen Anne Victorian, right across the street, which I would consider a classic example of one. So that's the setting literally across the street. I think all I'm trying to do is differentiate that this setting has been substantially compromised by the construction of those 2 buildings.
And I guess the question that I would want to ask is, if this building were to be replaced by, let's say, a 6-story building, would you argue that the setting of Sherman Place relative to those historic buildings, the Queen Anne style buildings, would be further compromised?
Could you repeat the question? If this building
If
was
this
replaced
building
by a
were
6-story
demolished,
building,
and if this building were demolished and replaced by a building very much like the buildings that you just said, take away from the quality of the setting?
no, I don't think that's necessarily the case. No, I don't think the buildings on either side set a precedent for what the setting should be. I think the 2 buildings on either side are anomalous to the district
Right.
and detract from the district. So what could go in between could be something this size. It could be something
Understood.
taller. But I think it would have to conform to your broader point. The context of the Sherman Place block.
I also
It would have to be
think
something in keeping. It would have to be something, even if it was a contemporary design.
I just want to make the point that I understand that we're not reviewing an application for a new design. I just wanted to clarify sort of your language around what detracts from the setting, and that you agree that the setting is comprised by more than just those 2 immediately adjacent
Absolutely,
buildings.
and you're never going to see me come back and say that, a building as large as those 2 are necessarily appropriate to the setting because of the rest of the setting. And what's character defining about that potential district is the domestic scale. And that domestic scale, like I showed you in the building right across the street, is 4 stories. Most of it's 2, 2.5. But those are generally the buildings that are in that, with the exception of the 2 on either side of us. And I think the fact that they're on either side of us is directly is a significant consideration when we talk about setting. But there is a larger setting to not only Sherman Place, but to Jersey City. There's a larger setting to Victorian architecture. There's a larger setting to Queen Anne style architecture that exists above and beyond just Jersey City. So you can establish context in a number of ways, not only physically, but temporally. If we might, want to go to the next slide?
Well, I was going to say if you could just reiterate for the board and provide us with some examples of some characteristic features that you would see in a Queen Anne style construction.
Well, let's look at one. There you go. That's a pretty, I could have chosen zillions of different Queen Anne buildings. What I tried to do is choose one from the Northeast, choose one that is similar scale and massing to ours, choose one that's an urban Victorian. Obviously, Victorians and Queen Anne buildings, when it's at Llewellyn Park and it's, Thomas Edison's house, it's a sprawling, massive thing that's ebullient and effusive and is covered with various kinds of finishes and decorations and relief. Relief is a huge component to relief on the facade is a huge component to every Queen Anne building. And so what I did is I chose this one. Yeah, I mean, I chose this one because I was trying to be similar to what I think existed on this block and what I know partially exists still on this block. But that's a classic one. You know, that's as good as it gets, you know, and you can see how enormously different in feel, massing, fenestration, finishes, detailing in every aspect of the building that a classic Queen Anne house, urban Queen Anne house, would be from what we've got here. So I did try to illustrate the difference right there with that one. I don't want to, I think Jennifer said accurately before and may want to say again, we're aware of the Hunter study that was done and finished in 2025. It's our understanding, is it correct that this commission has voted for or endorsed that study yet?
The commission wouldn't vote on a study like that, right? The commission doesn't approve or deny, they don't have their within their powers by the
They wouldn't
MLUL.
comment on?
It hasn't come to the commission for a vote yet. We're in the community outreach section of any.
Okay, so the community outreach, none of that process has started. And then
Well, no, the community outreach has started.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
in process, but
But it's not designated yet.
the Sherman Place Residential Historic District has been identified as a eligible historic district locally and on the state register. It has not been designated.
It's not been identified on the state register. What it has on the state register is a SHPO opinion of eligibility.
Yes, it's been
And so
identified as eligible by
That's different
SHPO.
than being determined eligible to the state register.
Sure,
That's
okay.
different from a determination of eligibility. That's the lowest level of determination that the SHPO can make, that they, in a quick review, think that you've got something that's eligible as a historic district. And I concur. With the SHPO opinion, that I do think there's a potential historic district there. But it legally, I'm sure Jennifer's going to stop me quick if I say anything more. Legally, it's not in a historic district yet. And the study has been done. The little blue arrow is our property. And just to remind you of the Hunter study, it did several interesting things. One, the yellow are the non-contributing buildings. I looked at every single one of the non-contributing buildings. And all of the non-contributing buildings are either new or empty lots. None of them are existing buildings that have been compromised. I can't see how that could have been the case. It just doesn't seem possible that every building that exists is contributing. And so I also would point out that in that study, as you know, in historic districts, which you're so good at stewarding here in Jersey City, a historic district generally has key contributing and non-contributing. There are no key buildings identified in the Hunter study in the historic district. I think that says something about the district, which I'll leave it to you to conclude. Here's a page from the Hunter study, and this title on top exists in several different locations by several different professionals. In the staff memo, the staff concludes that the building is historic or significant in form only, and then talks about all of the loss of fabric. Then Robert Wise went on to say it's old in form only in his report. You have that in the appendix to mine. Hunter came back in 2024, and that's the page copied, and where you see my yellow arrow, you can see what they said. It's old in form only, and then they go on to describe everything that's missing. I think what you have there is 5 or 6 historic preservation professionals who all come to the same conclusion about this building. There's me.
Just for the purpose of the record, can you go back to that last slide? And can you read the last sentence, the full sentence?
The bold sentence.
It is old in form only, but retains, if you want to finish that sentence that Hunter wrote, if you're opining on what.
No, I do.
I don't want to read
No,
that.
well,
I don't want to read
Peter,
the first part.
Look, I don't want to get into staff comments at this point, but I do think it's worth the record that if you're going to testify on what someone else's opinion is, you should read the full sentence.
I provided it in my report. I provided it in the.
Okay, for the
material I got,
record.
and I will read it for you right now.
Thank you.
It is old in replacement. It is old. I got new glasses.
Oh, boy.
It is old in form only, but retains.
Can you do it into the microphone for the? It doesn't pick up on the recording unless it's in the
It
microphone.
is old in form only, but retains sufficient scale and architectural character, particularly at the roof line, to be contributing. Pretty badly worded sentence. Where is the architectural character that they're talking about? If it doesn't have anything but the form, they then make this complete non sequitur where they say it has architectural character. What character? They go on to say it's the roof line.
Thanks for reading the whole sentence.
Okay, so
I would never do otherwise or try to mislead you with the facts.
So in your professional opinion, your review, and based on everything you've provided to this commission thus far, the structure itself, sorry, can you go back 1 second? So I can read. When we talk about scale, we talked about the fact that the building was constructed generally in that position. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when we talk about the architectural character, we've reviewed for this commission the fact that only the ones you've identified, 28 elements, have been removed from the facade.
Yes.
And-
We lump that into like all the cladding, but there's lots of different cladding that's been removed. We just saw cladding as one of the 28.
And with respect to the architectural character, that goes to whether or not we would meet and satisfy that of a Queen Anne style
Right. The
construction.
character defining elements of Queen Anne architecture are gone.
So it's your opinion that to have the architectural features of a Queen Anne building are severely lacking from this existing property.
Absent except for the roof line.
And based on your professional analysis, 32 Sherman meets the criteria and would be appropriate for demolition.
Yes.
And demolition of this property would be consistent with the city's ordinance.
Yes. And to the commissioner's comment, some point down the road, if this building is replaced, a new building is going to have to come to, maybe, once this is designated as a historic district. But even under, if it's not, a new building would have to come before this board and meet the town's, all the requirements for new construction. And just like I heard you talking in the previous application, all the subtleties and the nuances of how new construction can be done so it's sympathetic and deferential to the historic context.
I do
There's
not
an
think, though,
opportunity. My assertion is that there's an opportunity to put a pretty nice building here.
I
But
do
we're
not think,
proposing
though, that the commission should consider any future buildings in determining this application tonight.
But I was asked about a future building before by one of the commissioners.
You were, and I didn't
Which
say
I-
anything the first time, but the second time, I just want to clarify, commissioners, what you can consider in making your decision tonight.
And just to clarify the statement as well, if this is not designated as a historic district, then the review of a future development at the site would not come before this board.
That's right.
Okay. Or does that conclude your testimony at this time? We would move into commissioner comments, so you can always add to it. It doesn't stop you from adding to your testimony. All right. If there are any questions from any commissioners for Mr. Primavera.
I don't have any questions. I've just been reviewing it and reviewing his report and looking at the 7 aspects of integrity. Just my personal opinion, and someone who does have a historic preservation degree and has been on this commission and worked here, written these reports, and works for New York City Landmarks Commission. In my opinion, the building does have the aspect of location. The location hasn't changed. Okay, there has been perhaps been an addition on it. I don't think that should affect it. I do think the building still has the design aspect, and I think that's mainly, as was referenced in the Hunter report, is due to the roof line. I don't think anyone's going to look at this building and confuse it with a building that was built in after World War II. Though it has lost the materials and workmanship, I skipped over because I do think the setting is still there. I think that the adjacent buildings, though they are, I believe you said 1929 buildings, I think that's typical in Jersey City to have apartment buildings encroaching on Victorian residential districts. We see it in the West Bergen district. There's a lot of those 1920s, 1930s apartment buildings. So that's a very normal condition that we see happening in the interwar period between World War I and II. Therefore, we have 3. I don't think we have materials and workmanship, and I do think the feeling is certainly there. And again, that's largely because of the roof form. And obviously, association, it does not have as well. There's no important historic event or person. So I think that there's still 4 of the 7 aspects of integrity that I feel it still maintains. I think people can look at it, make their own decisions. Obviously, Mr. Primavera thinks this partially meets 1. I'm not sure what the staff report said, if it were 3 or 4. But generally, I do think that there are 4 aspects of integrity that this building maintains.
If I might, I just slipped up a slide with anticipating Commissioner Bryan's comment on feeling. And feeling is something that's very specifically defined in Bulletin 15 of by the National Park Service and how you evaluate historic significance. When I talked about the 7 aspects of integrity in the National Register and the State Register, they, unlike this ordinance, they actually define the word feeling, and that's it if it helps inform your comment. I'm not necessarily trying to change it. I just want to make sure you see a formal definition of feeling. And when I read that, I don't get feeling out of this building.
Do you have an opinion on how many of the 7 should be met in order to qualify, in order to not meet the threshold for demolition?
Commissioner, legally, what the 7 says is after each, and let's go back.
It says and or, right?
And or.
Right.
So your point is well taken. I anticipated that also. As you can see there, it says and or. So is it the position, it's the position of the text in the ordinance that it only has to meet one of those?
Do you believe
Is
that
anybody serious about that? That a building that simply maintains location is significant?
I'm just
I mean,
asking for your. I'm
I
just asking for your
don't.
position.
I just, under any preservation standard, I've never seen that before.
Personally, I
And
think it should
it's
be
what
at
the
least
ordinance says. If I may, it's what the ordinance says, and I'm not doubting it. And I anticipated
For the record,
Austin's comment.
I think
What it says. It says and or. So I think that means it could be any one of them.
I'm not trying to. This is not a gotcha. This is not a
Yeah, I know.
obviously right. I actually really appreciate the thoroughness and the kind of point for point addressing of each item of the ordinance. In fact, I wish more of our applications had this kind of thoroughness. I'm just asking for the applicant's position on whether or not meeting 1 out of the 7 suffices, and if not, then how many? So
Exactly, and it doesn't say. The ordinance doesn't say how many. What is my opinion? My opinion is the National Register criteria requires you to meet all 7. And that is referred to, as we heard before, in the ordinance. Now, this ordinance, as you've heard me say before, and I'm very frank about it, I think it's got holes in it. I think it's got things that are
Peter,
illogical.
respectfully, this application is not about whether or not you agree with the ordinance or not. It's
still gonna
presenting
finish
your
my
case.
statement.
That's fine. I want the commission to know the opinion is not of whether or not you like the ordinance or think that it has holes in it or not. We are discussing the historic integrity of the application in front of us.
Understand. And as I've said before, and you've heard me say before on other applications, like when we did 440 Parkway, that industrial building that was the pump house and things like that, that there are things that are self-contradictory in the ordinance. The ordinance needs work. I've never seen a demolition ordinance that has this and/or in it.
So when you reviewed this ordinance and this particular property.
But it is yours.
You reviewed each of these 7 criteria for integrity as a whole also.
Yes.
And in doing so, you were able to analyze whether or not, as a whole, it met the location design material
We
setting.
did it both ways. We
Correct.
did it according to the way the National Register does it, and then we did it according to the way the ordinance does, as is what's on the screen right now. And as Mr. Blazek and I have a disagreement.
And personally, as a preservationist, I think that 4 out of 7, but depending on what they are, I think there should at least be a majority of these met for there to be integrity. Obviously, number 7 is rare because there aren't a lot of properties that have had an important event or person associated with it. So that's kind of, we don't have, maybe in Jersey City would be Mayor Hague or some other,
And I can, if you'd like, I'll go down a list as long as my arm of buildings that exist in Jersey City that have a person, place, or event associated with them that makes them significant. Primarily one is the Beacon, the former Jersey City Medical Center, which not only has architect of significance, but has a period of significance associated with major events in the construction in that period of time, and Major Hague, and all the issues related to Mayor Hague. Maybe that was Freudian. Mayor Hague, and his control of how things got built, all the way to things like the Apple Tree House, all the way things like, there are plenty of buildings in town that actually do have person, places, or events. Not the majority.
It's certainly not a
the
majority. It's a
and
small
I
number.
don't
But there are
contest that. But there are plenty of buildings in this town that have a person, place, or event associated with it.
Just in the interest of kind of getting comments on the record, I also don't have any further questions. I'll just note for the record that I agree with Commissioner Blazak about the location. Well, I agree with both the applicant and Commissioner Blazak about whether or not the structure maintains the integrity of location. I think it does. I also think it maintains the integrity of setting because when I look down the street and I see the other structures beyond the immediately adjacent structures, and I see the roof line, and I imagine what it would be like to remove 32 Sherman from that streetscape, I think that would actually compromise the integrity of the setting. And so in my mind, that seems to me, at least, again, just for me, an indication that this small structure, as woefully compromised as it has been, which I agree with you, it really has suffered a lot. Removing that small piece of the roof line, if that compromises the setting, that means it's contributing to it currently. So I do think it contributes to the setting of the street. And I will say that I'm less convinced about design and feeling, but at least in location and setting, for me, it seems quite clear that it's contributing.
Commissioner, if I may speak to that, I think we're largely in agreement on the points you just made, except the setting issue. I have a feeling if I owned a house on this block in Sherman Place in 1928 and somebody said they were going to build those 2 buildings, I would have had a conniption because they were so out of character and so intrusive. And I think to call them, the most recent report actually calls them contributing. They are not in any way what you just described.
Excuse me, could I ask that the commissioners be given a chance, if they have
Yes.
comments, to make their comments, and maybe you could hold your rebuttal to the end so that we could at least hear from all the commissioners?
I think that would be wise considering we have a strict deadline, a curfew of 10 p.m.
Yeah.
I think we keep butting our heads up against the somewhat ambiguous language of the demolition ordinance, unfortunately, which is not clear about how these, I mean, we have these different factors for considering historical integrity, but how those factors are weighed and what the tipping point is very unclear. But we do have factors to work with. And just one observation based on the memo we have in this application that I found contradictory. It refers to presently the building lacks integrity of materials and workmanship, but retains sufficient scale and architectural character, particularly at the roofline, to possess integrity of design, feeling, and association as a late 19th century dwelling with Queen Anne style influences. And then it goes on to say there's no significant historical associations. Looking at the ordinance, association specifically refers to, as we discussed, a link with a historic event or person, which I think there's no dispute that does not apply here. So clearly there's no association, although the memo refers to it in a more colloquial sense in that sentence. I think the one where there's no dispute is location. The building is where it is. But to me, there are some remaining characteristics where you can tell that there once was something there, but very little remains at this point. So, personally, I'm not getting any kind of a feeling. Maybe there's a sense that there was something there, but I wouldn't be able to tell what it was. The setting has, as the applicant noted, changed significantly, and there's a loss of significant material and workmanship. So, I don't feel like losing this building would be much of a loss to the city. That's my feeling at this time.
I'd also like to add that while we may disagree on whether this factor of integrity is satisfied, this is also a 7-factor test of a 7-factor test, of which I have not seen any disagreement about the other 6 factors, which all, except one, I think, go towards demolition.
So I'm a guy that's got a house that's a Victorian that was covered with stucco before the 1937 photograph. It had stucco on it for 90 years. I started taking the stucco off, and of course every ounce of the historic fabric was under it. And the only place where there was damage was wherever the stucco had cracked and had not been repaired. The good thing about this particular building I can see is that the stucco is pretty solid. Looks like it's well sealed up. So it's probably preserved. Now I can't tell, but I wouldn't be willing to vote to demolish this building unless you did a little bit more extensive research into what's underneath that stucco. I'm willing to almost guarantee that all the historic fabric's under there. And I'm willing to bet, Mr. Primavera, that you would agree with that. Now, you can't guarantee it unless you dig under there. But
Can I answer your question?
You can, but let me finish what I'm saying. And the reason I say that is because that's what happened with my building, and every inch of it was like that. And there were very few people that would strip a building of all its historic fabric and then cover it with stucco. They were just doing the simplest thing, which was covering it with stucco. They found cheap windows and they infilled around the existing window frames. My original window frames, the original exact size of those frames, was still there. All of it. Every inch. And it's taken me many years to fix it. Sure. And I'm almost done with it. But so I don't see it as missing that aspect, its workmanship. I see it like if I covered your head with a bag, you would still be Mr. Primavera. You wouldn't suddenly be.
You don't know that. You know what a
Well, I would.
cat is? If you know physics and Schrodinger's cat, you would not know whether I'm alive or dead under that bag.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the sentiment that I still would be.
But I think you would be, even if it was, a picture that was taken 10 years ago, and then I saw the same bag on your head 10 years later.
I got you.
Okay, so that's the way I feel about it, and what I look at that, and I look at it, and I think of my house, because I think the roof forms are there, and they were there on my house. The chimney is the original chimney, but the cap is missing. It was probably terracotta, the original portion. There's parts that are missing. Somebody took the porch off, and somebody spent a lot of money to pave over the garden. And those are all something that an owner, that I don't know how long this owner's had this building. You said he's a new owner, but from my records, he's had it since 1987.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's had it almost 40 years. So he had ample opportunity to do good things to this building. I'm going to say he's probably the guy that put those shutters on that you seem to call shingles. Those shutters.
Did I call them shingles?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry, shutters.
But the shutters were probably put on by somebody since 1987. Those vinyl windows were also done by somebody since 1987. So I'm going to say a lot of the things were probably done by him. I'm not. It doesn't make any difference to me who did it, but I'm going to tell you that you would agree if you were working on the other side of this for someone who was trying to restore a building, as opposed to trying to get someone who's paying you to designate it as something that should be demoed. You would say that there's a lot of historic fabric underneath that stucco.
May I answer your question?
Yes, you go ahead.
With all due respect, and with all deference to your experience in the city and with your house, I would say exactly the opposite from what you just said. I would say this house has 28 missing character-defining elements on that picture you see in front of you right now. Those aren't under the stucco. The windows that were long and tall are not under the stucco. In fact, in the city's memo, it says the window pattern still exists. It doesn't. I just showed you two photographs right there where there's two windows that don't even exist anymore that are under the stucco.
I think they're talking about the primary facade that's parallel to the street.
Right.
They're referring to the locations of those windows. That pattern is still in existence at three windows over two in the door. I mean, if you disagree with that, I'm going to say we have different eyesight. But I will say also.
No, I would say.
I will bet you.
I'm saying, do you see a bay window?
If you want to make a bet
Guys, don't
right
talk
now,
over each other, please.
If you want to make a bet,
I haven't finished what I
Mr.
was gonna
Primavera,
say.
if you want to make a bet right now, I'm willing to bet if we walked over there right now and I took a hammer and hammered out some of that stucco, I'm going to guarantee that frame of those windows, the original tall frame, is still behind there.
I don't bet. I deal in historical facts.
Okay, well, that's why I'm not saying it's there. I'm just betting. I'm saying to you that, and I also do custom woodwork, and so many buildings that I've worked on in Jersey City have the same condition if they've been stuccoed. If they're a wooden building and they've been stuccoed.
I don't have that information. I can't respond to that.
Okay, then you don't work with wood buildings then.
I work with wood buildings for 45 years.
Guys, in the
being dishonest
interest of time, I think we should keep the comments directed to this building.
Well, and this is probably maybe a question for staff or for council, but I mean, in this case, the memo we have actually concedes that the building lacks integrity of materials and workmanship, and I assume that's because we're basing our review on what we can actually see. The applicant has not taken it upon themselves to do any kind of exploratory demolition or peek under the hood. So how far can we speculate about what's can we base our assumptions on what we've seen in similar properties, professional experience, or do we really just have to work with what we see on the screen?
Staff doesn't, like the memo says, we agree with the applicant that the integrity of materiality and workmanship has been compromised. I don't necessarily know how much we have to speculate further on that. We're all in agreement.
So then if I want to demo my building, all I need to do is stucco it and say there's no historic integrity under it.
Guys, we are not talking about hypotheticals. We're talking about the application in front of us. I'm not looking to rush anyone through this, but we have
Can I ask a question?
22 minutes before we get kicked out of the building, and we still have items that we have to do
If
for
I
the
might,
end of the year.
Can I ask a question first,
If I might
please?
really quickly, just to finish that and not to make it any further debate. Nobody stuccoed over the front porch. Nobody stuccoed over the long windows. Nobody stuccoed over other architectural features like the wrought iron fence. Nobody stuccoed over the original balustrade on the front porch. Nobody stuccoed over the front door. That's my point.
Okay, so porches, gardens, etc., can be put back. So, but my question is about your point that the historic preservation district is not yet formed, but it is mentioned, and the report is mentioned in the historic preservation master plan. Am I correct about that?
Yes.
And that should be sufficient for the ordinance when it's mentioned, I assume, right? That's what we have talked about before?
It's different. It's different to be mentioned in the historic element of the master plan and be designated by the council or the governing body. So that's where we're at right now, is the district is not designated by the governing body, but it is listed in the historic element of the master plan.
And I will say, being mentioned in the master plan is one of the elements that is looked for. It's one of the criteria under the demolition ordinance. So as far as that goes, it does satisfy that criteria. It just is not locally designated. But it is mentioned in both the historic preservation master plan and the land use element of the master plan. The Sherman Place Historic District is mentioned in
If I
both.
can add to that, as Maggie said before, there is a SHPO opinion of eligibility, which we want to take into account everybody who's looked at the district, good or bad.
I
and we
understand,
did.
but I want to
did.
go back to that. We have looked at other demolitions before, and we have actually considered them because they were mentioned in the historic preservation master plan, even if they weren't part of an historic preservation district. So I just want to point that out. I think that is very important as well as another criteria. I would just like to go on the record agreeing with everybody, including the applicant, that there is integrity of location for this building. Agree with previous comments about integrity of setting. I do agree there's integrity of design for the roof line and also the roof volumes. I think if we can go to the photo of the current condition,
Sure.
you know, as we always see in Jersey City, often see, you know, there's this curiosity under the, I guess, eave of, you know, the gable and the tower that was stuccoed over and boxed out. There's likely brackets beneath there. We have the projecting volume of the tower form, so we can see where the porch would go back if you know, an owner so chose. I do see the fenestration pattern on the pair of windows at the parlor floor, even though they've been shortened in the two windows above. Obviously, the third window on the second floor has been modified down to a stock size, and the same with the Palladian window. You can kind of tell by comparing this photo to the tax card photo that the left jamb and head of those windows is very similar to the Palladian window assembly. They've just smushed two windows that were stock sized together and didn't, you know, care about the centering. So, and you know, and the chimney, like everyone's, like that has been mentioned before, the chimney's still there, although it's been modified, that can be built back. You know, just because the garden has been torn out and paved over doesn't mean it can't go back. Ironwork often goes missing, it can go back. We even have photographic evidence for what it looked like. And same with the porch. So, you know, while things have been altered and they're unsympathetic, you know, renovations over time, like I think integrity of design is still there. And we're talking 3 of 7, you know, factors. And the 7th is the rarity. So maybe we're really more often than not only looking for of the 6 factors. And I don't think I can support voting, recommending to demolish this building.
Any further comments from any commissioner, questions, anything?
I would only have one other, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, for free.
There's nothing in the ordinance about restorability.
Okay. All right.
If that concludes your testimony, we can move on to public comment and then we can get into staff comments.
public all went home.
Yes. So staff recommends a motion to open and close public comment.
Motion to
seeing as
open
there's-
and close public comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So moving into staff comments, I think we've talked a lot tonight about kind of where the commission lies. The report that staff prepared was mentioned a few times. As we stated, this is mentioned as a particular subject, so it is actually in the inventory at the bottom. It's listed as well as it's located in the eligible Sherman Place Residential Historic District, which is discussed both in the historic preservation element of the master plan as well as in the land use element of the master plan. So some significance. It was built in 1890. I do want to touch on something that actually Commissioner Kay brought up. So we've talked a lot about the integrity of this building, and all of those factors, the 7 factors, are kind of in the ordinance subsumed under the 7th factor. So there are 6 other things that are within the ordinance. We talked a little bit about the age. We talked about it being listed in the master plan. And then we have, based off of the National Register criteria, right? We have the 4 items: architectural significance, association with a person, association with an event, and then archaeological data. Generally, professionally, you do not see a building that maintains all 4 of those or matches all 4 of those. Generally, you're looking for 1 or 2 out of that. So speaking to the integrity of the building, right, we are looking at the architectural integrity. So it matches that criteria C for the National Register. In ours, the idea that it embodies the distinctive characteristics of a type, period, and method of construction, most especially if none or very few buildings or structures with the similar association has survived. That is what we're looking at. In staff's opinion, it does meet that, and the reason that it meets that is because of the factors of its integrity that it matches. So you have the integrity of, from staff's perspective, location, design, setting, and feeling. So staff feels that it matches 4. As was discussed, the materials and the workmanship have both been altered. It has diminished those both, but the location is intact. The design as a Queen Anne style, albeit a vernacular Queen Anne style, not quite as ornate as the one on the left. It does meet that design. I think if you showed that to somebody, they would recognize it as a Queen Anne. It has the asymmetrical facade. It has like a dominant front gable. It has the square turret or tower. And then you have the setting. As Mr. Primavera noted, both of the buildings on either side are both contributing to the National Register, the eligible district that is in the works. Those are both contributing buildings. One's Collegiate Gothic. I think the other one's like Tudor Revival. They were built in 1929, so the later end of the district, but they do contribute to the setting of particularly the block. And then the feeling, again, as that Queen Anne style building. So from staff's perspective, staff would recommend a motion to prepare a resolution recommending denial of the demolition application to the zoning officer. I don't know if Maggie has anything other to add.
I think you covered most of it.
I will make that motion.
May I?
Second.
May I provide a summation?
Do we want to I would recommend we let the council speak in response.
Of course.
Thank you, commissioners, for your time this evening. I know that the hour is late, and I certainly appreciate everything that you guys do on a monthly basis to ensure that preservation is done properly within the city. The reason why we have these ordinances in place, why the municipal land use law provides for these types of ordinances, is to ensure that there is appropriate preservation where appropriate. In this particular instance, we have seen that preservation of this building, which completely lacks its original composition, is not appropriate for preservation. In fact, it's the opposite. It is appropriate and consistent to demolish this property. As Mr. Primavera had noted, just some of the comments, There is no requirement within the ordinance that requires an applicant of a property that has been there for 50 years to go and rip up, whatever has been existing and to peek behind the walls and to see what's there and to restore it to what existed in 1897. That is completely inappropriate. It is contrary to the ordinance. It's contrary to the municipal land use law. We've gone through the various criteria that are referenced here, and I appreciate that staff has noted that it has been referenced as an eligible item within the Hunter research. It has been identified along with maybe 2,000 properties as those which may be contributing to the overall feeling. I would like to highlight that the Sherman Place is only listed within the master plan in a map. There is actually no other reference to it, I don't believe, within the master plan.
I will correct you on that. It is actually in the written portion. There's a whole section on eligible historic districts, and there is that, and it's listed as a recommendation that the city completes designation of it.
Correct, I'm sorry, the particular property, I apologize. And then in the historic plan element that was referenced, it references the survey that was conducted for phase 1 for Hunter research, which identifies the various properties. Like I mentioned, I think there were over 1,600 something properties that were identified, and specifically a Sherman property did not have an asterisk next to it. It did not have 2 asterisks next to it. And that's because this particular property has not been identified as a landmark property. It has not been designated in a historic district. Mr. Primavera went through, he gave you a summation of his report, his very lengthy report, which also summarized the findings of Mr. Robert Wise. They went through the 7 criteria here. And not only do we not meet them with respect to section E1, which is the ordinance that is applicable to the applicant at this time, but he also referenced, based on the National Register criteria or the state criteria, this similarly would not meet the criteria. It is not eligible, would not be eligible. And that's because location. Yes, we can look at any property that was constructed in 1975. Is that property historic? No. Why? We have to look at all of the other surrounding evidence that we have for the particular property. In this one, we've seen the design. It's not there. The setting, I understand, the feeling, it's a smaller size home in scale next to these 2 massive structures, but that doesn't make it fall within the setting of the remaining portion of the property, which must be majority of the Queen Anne style, Victorian style. Staff, I believe, agrees with us that there are no materials here that are remaining. The workmanship is similarly not there. The feeling, you have the roof line, which has existed, but the roof line has also been replaced. With respect to integrity, as we've seen here, it's not necessarily a sliding scale. Either the building maintains its integrity or it does not. In this particular instance, the building fails to maintain its integrity, and that's because of all of the modifications that we've heard to date. When you look at this particular property, which, to be quite frank, is really an eyesore, it's not contributing to the beautiful setting of Sherman Place at all. The front porch has been eliminated, the second roof, the beautiful windows, and not that it is relevant or important, but I would like to note for this commission that the property was purchased in this particular instance in 1987. This is what it looked like. The modifications have not been made to establish the stucco or whatnot. That happened sometime between, as we've seen, 1974 and when the property was purchased in 1987. So as we've mentioned, the integrity is not a sliding scale here. And we cannot establish or qualify under that provision. I just would like to urge for this board that demolition is completely appropriate in this instance, and in fact, it provides an opportunity to bring a property more in line with the character of the neighborhood, whereas today it's offering nothing. It's not contributing to the environment. It has existed, it's in a state of disrepair, and it can we have opportunity to put something that the city would be proud of in this particular location. So with that, I would respectfully request a favorable vote, and I would urge the board to specifically reference the ordinance provision, section 345-30E1, which is what this board has to review in order to determine whether or not demolition would be appropriate in this instance. And based on the evidence that we have presented this evening, the reports which have been submitted, and the testimony that has been provided, I would offer that it certainly does. Thank you for your time.
So we had a motion on the floor, I believe.
I would reiterate her request for you to cite your specific reasons for making your decision based on the extensive testimony and evidence. you
Okay, well, I did not find the testimony compelling, and I think the building has integrity, as I've
Can
stated.
we, oh, okay. I was about to say, we had a motion. I don't know if there was a second, if it was recorded.
I seconded it.
Okay, great. All right, so if we have a motion on the floor to prepare a resolution to recommend denial of the demolition permit, and we have a second, I will do a roll call vote, and we can begin with Commissioner Blazak.
All right, and again, I vote aye, and again, I find that the building does have integrity, and I did not find the testimony compelling enough that it does not have integrity.
Thank you.
And also that it is on, as Commissioner Kalbach said, has been identified as a contributing building in a potential historic district.
And what elements of integrity are you citing?
I mentioned it earlier, but again, I think it has integrity of location, design, setting, and feeling.
Okay. Commissioner Gucciardo?
Yes, I vote aye to deny as well. I would agree that has the integrity of setting and location, feeling, and I just, the form of the building is there. I can identify it immediately as a Victorian structure, and for those reasons, I don't believe it should be demolished.
Okay. Sorry, going in order here. Commissioner Sandkamp?
I also vote aye to the motion to deny based on the feeling of integrity that I believe it has, its location, design, setting, and also that it's listed as a contributing structure. And I believe within the next 12 months, this will be a historic district, and this will be a contributing structure in that new district.
Okay. Commissioner Gordon?
I'm going to vote nay, and I'll mention that I noted with some concern that some commissioners had spoken about the availability of restoring the building to its grandeur during the period of significance, and I would say that if you throw enough money at these projects and you have a photo of the building, you can restore it to some degree or another. I think that what we're charged with under the demolition ordinance is to consider how much there is of the original integrity, how far we would have to go to restore it to its original grandeur during the period of significance. And in my mind, there's not enough of the original building's integrity left that it warrants preservation. So that's the rationale.
Thank you. Commissioner Gunther?
I also vote aye. I'm going to vote aye. I believe the building has integrity of location, setting, and design, and noting that also it is part of the master plan element and has been identified as a contributing building in an identified eligible historic district, or district eligible to be designated as a historic district.
Thank you. Commissioner Callback?
I vote aye. The building for me has integrity because of its setting and location, as well as the feeling and design. Someone from that time period put back into that location would do recognize this building as a building from the 1890s, just about the shape and roof line. And it also is mentioned in the historic preservation master plan. That's the name of it.
Commissioner Sakong?
I think this property retains the integrity of its location and setting. And I was preparing to vote nay because I was debating with myself if that was sufficient, if that met enough of the criteria. I have to note, though, it was the applicant's concluding comments that convinced me to vote aye because of your insistence on the binary. It either has integrity or it does not. And according to your metrics, then I have to vote aye because I think it has some. And I leave it to the clarification of the ordinance to say, what the thresholds we should be debating. But at least in the context of this conversation, I was looking for some acknowledgement of the nuances and of the complexity, and the acknowledgement of what we were trying to protect. And in the absence of that acknowledgement, and in the context of the need for that black and white, I vote aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Kay?
I'll vote nay. I think that while it's true, the form of the structure maintains its Queen Anne influences with the roof line. It's being completely engulfed. I don't think, even if we were to deny demolition, which it seems that we have, it would be restored. And especially with it becoming an historic district soon, we would probably have, not that we're considering other structures in its place, but I don't think that would have been a concern of mine. So.
Okay. Thank you. And Acting Chair Garriga?
I'm going to vote aye against the demolition based on the integrity of location, setting, and feeling. And in terms of consistency, we voted on not demolishing a building that was just four walls, right? And I was someone who was going to vote for the demolition of that property, right? And then it was this commission here that brought up the integrity of the location and the setting, and keeping with that consistency, I'm voting affirmative to not demolish in this matter.
Thank you. Okay. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 votes in favor of preparing a resolution to deny the demolition permit, and 2 against, and there are no abstentions. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank
you.
Thank you for the great debate, too.
Thanks, Peter.
Not too many historic preservation commissions we can have this high-level discussion.
Thank you.
In
Thanks
New
for the
Jersey.
compliment.
And I've been in front of all of them besides New York, Philadelphia, Washington. But in New Jersey, this is an extraordinary example of not only do you have terrific professional staff, but you have a lot of commissioners who put a lot of fine-tooth combs to these considerations. And I disagree.
Thank you.
But I respect how you came to your conclusion.
Thank you. We do have a few items that we have to finish up tonight.
Yes.
So if I could just ask everybody's patience for just a few minutes longer. Thank you.
Okay. To close out old business, case 8A, 300 Central Ave, B-25-0166 will be carried to the next regularly scheduled meeting of the HPC. Specific date to be voted on in just a moment. I'm going to skip over new business for now just to address the table cases so we can get out of here when we're done. There is no update to H-24-0316. There is no update to H-24-0012. There is no update to H-24-0251. However, they should be coming to the January 2026 meeting. And we, H-25-0147, 77 Grand Street, they are also anticipated to come to the January HPC meeting as well. So hopefully we will be seeing those two back. For demolition review, all cases, with the exception of 20 Sherman Place, which has been carried to March of 2026, 252 Central Ave, 507 Summit will be carried to the January HPC meeting. There's no update on any of the table demolition review cases. Okay, going back to new business. We have the 2026 calendar. Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone want to make a motion to approve?
Motion
Second.
to adopt the 2026 calendar as laid forth by staff.
I'm seconding
Okay.
it still.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then we have the stenographic services agreement. So this is Bridget's contract. Anyone have any questions?
No.
Anyone want to make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve Bridget's contract.
Second.
Nice.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Going back to the backside of the agenda, we have no resolutions to introduce or discuss, no resolutions to memorialize. We do not need an executive session, and that just leaves us with adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, it is 10:04 p.m. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Iris.